what's going on? All right, guys, what is happening? I hope everybody's having an amazing Wednesday evening. Welcome to the Tough Cover Podcast. Today, I've got Mark, I've got myself. We've got some guests running in and out, but we are breaking down Ben Simmons trades. We're going to break down 40 trades of 20 teams, and we're going to say yes or no. And guys, if you're watching the show, also, please be sure to like this video if you like this. And please be sure to subscribe. But I want you guys to give your opinion. When we go through these trades, I want to hear from you guys in the chats whether you say yes or no on the proposed trades. And let's before we get started, man, I got to be clear. I am a Ben Simmons guy. This is like throwing salt on a wound. This is a dark day. This is a red day for me. This is truly therapy. But I just want to throw it right there to my man, Mark, at Mark Henry Jr. _. What's going on, Mark?
Yeah, what's up, guys? I am also a huge Ben Simmons guy. So this is tough for me, but it's something that seems we're at the point now. Like I've pushed back on the Ben Simmons trades for so long. And I know we're going to get a ton of these types of comments that say the star player in return for Ben Simmons must be a shooter who's also a great defender, not going for only an offensive player. Defense needs to be a big part of his game. Guys, let me just get this off my chest. Like, I'm not like yelling at the rooftops, I want to trade Ben Simmons for Buddy Hield. Like, I'm trying to run through as realistic trade offers as I can. And that's going to be a wide range of things because right now we're going to get comments when I put up a Damian Lillard trade saying, oh, you guys are homers. And then we're going to get comments when I put up a trade that maybe people don't love. And it's like, Ben Simmons isn't that bad. What, do you hate Ben Simmons? So I'm just trying to give you guys an idea. There's 40 trades. There's a wide range of value. And this comment here, like I already talked about, if we didn't need to trade Ben Simmons for a guy who could shoot, we wouldn't be trading Ben Simmons. Like, we're not going to be able to replace everything Ben Simmons does on a basketball floor and then also add an insane shooter in that player. That's just not possible. If we needed to do that, Ben Simmons would not be traded. Like, I don't know how the best way to word that and the best way to get that across is, but you're going to be making sacrifices if you're moving Ben Simmons. And hopefully the benefit of adding a main playmaking point guard or a shooting guard who can get their own bucket outweighs the negatives of trading Ben Simmons. And Justin Persichetti just joined. So Justin, how we doing?
Listen, man, I'm excited to get into this and talk some basketball. I've have taken a few days to try to let this season sink in a little bit. I, like you two were saying, and listen, we're all sick, ultimately Sixers fans here, but we also want what is best for this organization and this team. And so, listen, let's get into it, and we'll get into whether or not we think he should be traded for the guys that we're talking about.
Yeah, so again, I just want to emphasize there's going to be a wide range of values here. Like the first trade I talk about, I would say no to. But we're obviously the last trade. So stick around to the end. The last trades I'm going to go through are the Portland trades. And right now, Portland is a massive betting favorite to be where Ben Simmons plays his next basketball currently. I think it's actually minus 150 I saw it at. So they're less than plus money to be the team that Ben Simmons plays his next team on. And that makes sense because of the possibility of either a Damian Lillard or a CJ McCollum package. That's obviously the most obvious thing. We're going to get to that. That's going to be the last one. But I'm going to try to take you guys outside the box, take you guys out of what you've been hearing constantly on Twitter, the same couple names. And a couple of these are going to be immediate no's. Like the first one, I tried to do this in draft order, by the way. So the first trade you're going to be hearing from is the Detroit Pistons, and that is Jeremy Grant and Corey Joseph for Ben Simmons and George Hill. Personally, Jeremy Grant was a great player last year. I can't do this personally. So I'm not in on this one. I think the Pistons would love to do this, although Cade Cunningham would be a little bit of a weird fit. But it's not something I can get behind. I almost took it off the list, but that's the first one. I assume it's a no for you guys as well, Jeremy Grant and Corey Joseph. Justin?
You're muted, Debs.
All right, I'm back. I just threw the trade into the chat, guys. Yes or no? Let us know. For me, it's a straight no. Jeremy Grant has that like Michael Carter Williams vibe written all over it. Above average player putting up gaudy stats on a terrible team. Like, I like Jeremy Grant. I always have, even when he was with the Sixers. But like, look at his usage rate. It went from like 12, 15% to 28% last year. There's no chance in hell that guy's playing that role here in Philly. That's a no for me, dog.
Yeah, we're not going to spend a lot of time on those crappy ones. So we'll move on to one that I actually think this is going to get. By the way, before I say these are going to get the same reaction as the Jeremy Grant things, but I think this is on a way different level. Let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. And before we get to what we'll take back from the Cleveland Cavaliers, I just like to say that this seems like a pretty good fit for Ben Simmons, assuming that you trade one of your guards to get up there, and you trade Kevin Love, who's basically a 2-year contract for them for a rebuilding team that doesn't make a ton of sense. I think that could be a really good stylistic fit for Ben Simmons with a guard who can shoot, and then Jared Allen. I think that could be a good spot for him, and I think they'd have interest in him as a rebuilding team. But I will say Colin Sexton and Kevin Love for Ben Simmons. And then also, I think my bad. I think these should just go in tandem because it's really a conversation. Do you like Colin Sexton or Darius Garland more? I have a buddy who's a diehard Cavs fan, and he thinks that they value Garland higher, and he would rather keep Garland, but he is like dying to make a Sexton Love for Ben trade. He would probably even throw in some picks. Don't know if you guys have a preference between Sexton or Garland.
Justin, you want to go first?
Sure. I feel like Sexton and Garland are very similar players. Personally, out of the two, I think it might sound crazy, but I think I would like Garland a little bit more just because I personally like his game a little better. He just seems to be able to make shots from anywhere on the court, especially because he trains a lot with Tyrese Maxey in the offseason this year with Chris Johnson. So I saw a lot of videos of him training, and he looked pretty good. But I don't think like this comment right here from Meme Star. He said no, Sexton is awful on defense and can't pass. I don't know about the can't pass, but I mean neither of them are good defenders. But in my opinion, if you're looking to trade Ben Simmons, you're not exactly looking for that player to be a Ben Simmons level defender or anywhere even close to it. You're looking for a guy who can facilitate and can score, and that's just what I think. But what are your thoughts, Dibs?
Yeah, I mean, like again, I'm gonna admit I have not watched a lot of Cleveland Cavaliers games this season, but you look at the stats, you look at Colin Sexton, 64th percentile in the pick and roll, 40th percentile in ISO scoring, 68th percentile in transition, 40% from three in the catch and shoot. Garland seems to be much better off ball, definitely 43.2% in the catch and shoot. This is a definitely no for me, even though I know these two guys, had their kind of moments in the sun, killing the Sixers, I believe, early this season. But none of these two scream, replacements for me. We already have that in Tyrese Maxey. I'd rather just see what we got in Maxey in terms of like, that lightning quick guard that can penetrate, create, dish, and maybe, hit a pull-up J.
Yeah, the only difference between Maxey and I think there's a lot of differences between Maxey and those two. I think Maxey's a better defender, first of all, but second of all, Maxey's not as good at perimeter scoring, at least from what we've seen in comparison to them. But I agree with you in the sense where I personally would not make that move. I just don't think it's and I will say as well, I think Sixers fans tend to look at how a team, a certain player or a certain team plays against the Sixers instead of looking at their overall year and overall seasons. So again, let's break it down to this. Darius Garland and Colin Sexton are both undersized point guards, pretty much, that both play the shooting guard and the point guard positions for their team. We just saw Trae Young cook Ben Simmons, and I'm not comparing those two to Trae Young. I'm only comparing them by size, and the Sixers are known for not doing well against smaller guards because we don't have smaller guards to defend them. So I just want to point that out there, that just because a small guard cooks the Sixers doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to play extremely well for the Sixers. Just like Al Horford, just because he played well against us doesn't mean he's going to play well for us.
This, Shifty,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen, but yeah.
We'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there for sure. But I just want to say that I think Darius Garland is going to get undersold in this. I'm a Garland over Sexton guy as well. 6 assists last year, and that's with a guy in Colin Sexton who dominates usage rate when he's in the game. And he also shot 39.5% from three while shooting 45% from the field goal on a bad team while still taking 15 attempts per game. I'm considering both of these for sure. Hopefully there's something better that comes along, but this wouldn't be some like meltdown if they do this trade. Like I think we would still be really competitive next year, and who knows? These players are both so young and both so able to take a leap. You mentioned Trae Young in terms of we got cooked by Trae Young. Trae Young and Devin Booker both come to mind to me. I'm not saying that these guys can be quite as good as Trae Young or Devin Booker, but those are guys who were on bad teams putting up numbers that people had doubts about being a good stats, bad team player. And I could really see, especially Darius Garland more than Sexton, I could really see Darius Garland going to another place and taking a leap with how efficient he is at shooting the ball from three. And I don't really think he's much of a defensive liability like Sexton is. So I'm just saying that this would definitely be one that I would consider. And then another part of this would be, if we're saying we prefer Garland, then Garland, Love, and Larry Nance for Ben and George Hill. That would just help it out a little bit more. It would make it a little bit better of a trade for us. But we kind of talked out the Cleveland Cavaliers and that trade pretty well. And the third pick is the Cleveland, or that was, my bad. The second pick's the Houston Rockets. There's no trade on the Houston Rockets that really made sense to me. I was looking at John Wall. I'm not trading Ben Simmons for John Wall, though. So it feels like Houston had their chance at Ben Simmons. So they were one of the teams that I couldn't come up with a trade for Ben Simmons. So moving on to what the fourth pick is, and that's the Toronto Raptors. And I think there's a couple interesting scenarios here. And Toronto is one of these teams, we're going to get to a couple where I really have no idea how they value their own players. Like, I don't know who they view as their franchise player currently. So I don't know if Masai Ujiri was head over heels for a guy like Ben Simmons. And I could easily see that. Masai's a really smart guy. I could see him looking at Ben Simmons as a distressed asset that he could get for cheap and really rebuild and turn into a franchise player. So would they be more interested in trading Pascal? Would they be more interested in trading a guy like Fred VanVleet? Or my nightmare, are we going to do a sign and trade for Kyle Lowry? Those look like the three likely scenarios on this roster to me. And no one's going to talk about this because I feel like Toronto just got the fourth pick. They're moving forward. I think everyone thinks they're going to keep that core group together. But I would not be shocked ever to see Masai Ujiri make a big move. And if you've used Ben Simmons as that special type of player, then I could easily see it. By the way, whoever said that, I love Chris Boucher. So don't tempt me with a good time.
Now you're really smoking,
right? It was another Sixers killer.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a good player.
So what's the first trade you want to talk about with Toronto?
We can kind of break it down to each one. I feel like they all kind of go hand in hand based on who we think Toronto looks at as most expendable. I think there's a Pascal option and there's a Fred VanVleet option. Which one is Toronto more willing to do? And then there is a, Kyle Lowry sign and trade. I think that's a little bit separate. We can talk about Pascal and FVV, who you'd prefer, and Toronto, who you think they view as their franchise piece.
So personally, I don't think Pascal, I feel like Pascal is kind of a lateral move, in my opinion. I don't think you don't need another big. And not that Pascal is exactly a big, but he's a kind of the tweener between forward and wing and a power forward. It's just I don't think you need that. I think you already have a guy similar to Pascal and Tobias Harris just from playing that wing / power forward spot. You need a guard. So the Fred VanVleet, Rodney Hood makes a little bit more sense, but even then, is that the lowest level? To me, that's one of the lower level tier trades that you could make for a Ben Simmons. And honestly, I don't even know if Toronto does that. Let's be real. I honestly, being that they have that high pick in the draft this year now, and being what Freddie has been for them, I don't even know if Toronto wants to do that, being that they already have Pascal.
Yeah, the looming question, and Ian touches on it. What does that mean for Tobias? Tobias Harris thrived this year. Not in the playoffs, not at all against the Hawks. Let's be clear. But he had a great season. He overwhelmingly became a more efficient ball player. He was amazing in the pick and roll. He was amazing ISO. A lot of the things that we complained about and bitched and moaned about, he really turned it up here under Doc Rivers. And Doc, as bad as he coached in the playoffs, deserves a ton of credit for getting every ounce out of Tobias Harris this year, especially given that contract. It wasn't like this time, like a year ago, that was the worst contract in the league. And you look at it now, it's not. I don't think it's not even close. So if you were to ask me about Pascal Siakam like 2 years ago, this would be a completely different conversation. I remember I got flamed by so many people saying that Siakam's a top 20 player. Then he had a breakout year and was like, Siakam is like quintessential, my favorite mold of players. That is like my favorite type of players. You look at how he struggled shooting this year. I don't know where he would fit on this roster. Assuming we move Tobias, I understand it, but you saw Tobias under Doc Rivers in the Clippers thriving. Like I don't want to mess with that. I'm good with Toby with Doc Rivers moving forward.
Yeah, me too. Just real quick, the only reason that I really put this on there is because Pascal had some weird run-ins with Nick Nurse last year. I know he got benched a lot in late games. I think he even got suspended for a game for something he did with Nick Nurse. I can't remember exactly what happened, but so there has been some lack of harmony there in Toronto. And the only reason I mentioned it for the Sixers is because if Daryl Morey gets into a situation where, McCollum's not on the table, Lillard's not on the table, Beal's not on the table, Levine's not on the table. That's why I'm doing these types of trades for the people in the comments asking for those trades. I'm trying to look outside of that. And the only reason that I put him on there is because Daryl Morey might look at that and be like, the fit isn't perfect, maybe not, but he's the best player we can get in this situation. And he might just say, this is a value proposition. I'm only in my second year here. Let's go and get the best player, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. That's kind of what they thought they were doing with Al Horford at the time. But I wouldn't personally love this move. I just think it's not completely outside of the realm of possibility, especially with Joel and Pascal both being from Cameroon and being so close. Just a couple weird things that came in my brain that made me put that on the list. And then Fred VanVleet, on the other hand, Fred VanVleet's a little bit deceivingly old. But I didn't mention this with Darius Garland. The one thing that I wasn't huge on Garland's fit with the Sixers is he doesn't draw a lot of fouls. Fred VanVleet also doesn't draw all that many fouls. So those are definitely negatives in adding them to for Ben Simmons. What's up, Justin?
Something that I have to say about the fouls specifically is I don't think you need to find a guard who's super, super good at drawing fouls. And as much as you want that, don't get me wrong,
of course,
that's a plus if you can get it. But you already have a guy in Joel Embiid who gets to the line a ton. And if you can just get guys who can create something for themselves, like for instance, like you look at any small, I'm trying to, now I'm blanking on names. My goodness, like CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum, I don't think gets fouled terribly a lot. He really doesn't. He gets to the rim and creates space for himself to get good shots off. But he scores in traffic, scores open looks. So just a guy like that, I think is fine. I don't think you need a guy like a James Harden, like that level of guy who's going to get to the line. As much as it's nice, I don't even think Luke. I saw Luke said Levine in here. Does Levine get a lot of fouls? Because I feel like he rises up on people a lot more. So I don't think he gets as many calls.
Yeah, he gets way more than the other. Yeah, I mean, it was actually down this year, but he usually attempts up around 5.5, 6 free throws per game. It was down to 5. Still, these McCollum, VanVleet, Garland types are in that 2 to 3, 2 to 4 range. Mm-hmm. So he definitely has the advantage there. I'm way higher on Levine than most are, so I'm sure we'll play that out.
I am as well. I think if he's on a better defensive team, I really think the Chicago can do something for him because he was carrying their offense at times.
And especially when you're comparing him to Ben Simmons and a Ben Simmons trade, and I'm not, this all these things making it sound like that I hate Ben Simmons, which the people who know me are laughing at probably.
No, we're having an honest conversation about players and their values. I don't think that makes it seem like you hate Ben Simmons.
Mark,
but to go, Yeah. to go from the guy who obviously with that Yarn Weitzman article, there's clearly some work ethic concerns and there's clearly some concerns about his behavior. And you look at a guy like Zach LaVine, and Zach LaVine he came into the league as this guy he was bouncy, he could dunk, he had all this potential. He couldn't shoot at UCLA. He has turned himself into like a Bradley Beal level shooter. Like he shot 42% on like 9-10 attempts from three per game last year. I never would have thought Zach LaVine would have become a player like that. And I think that's truly due to hard work. And it's also, he got to play, I can't believe we're already talking about LaVine, but he got to play those minutes on a bad team. He got to grow while being on a bad team. I think something that's not talked about with Ben Simmons enough, Ben Simmons walked into the league on a 52-win team. Like Ben Simmons there was no time for messing around. There was no time for playing with his game, playing with his shot. He was immediately competing for the playoffs. And I think that is something that gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. I think Ben might be a different player if he got to go to a team that sucked and he got to completely work on his game. And if he didn't have all these people to pass to.
Exactly. Giannis is a perfect example of it, where he was on a team for a while that was not very good. He started out on the bench and worked his way up to being a starter and worked his way up into being the superstar of that franchise. And he got to work on his game and have his flaws, and he's still working on that now. But now he's just big enough, athletic enough, where even the finesse parts of his game, if they're not up to par exactly with the rest of the league, he's still able to play well. I do want to talk about this comment real quick. It's about we won't be a good defensive team after we trade Ben, though. I don't think we'll be as good of a defensive team, but I still think the team will be a good defensive team, personally.
Agreed.
Depending on the trade, obviously. Depending on the trade. Because if you're given, like, for, say, I don't want to talk about the trades that we have lined up yet, but say...
I did it already. You can do it.
Say for some reason Matisse Thybulle was thrown into a trade, then yes, I would be a little concerned about the defense after that, being that you really significantly lose your wing defenders. But I personally believe any trade that is going to be made this offseason, if they decide to trade Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle will not be allowed to be in the trade. I really, really believe. I don't think Daryl Morey is going to trade Matisse Thybulle this summer if Ben Simmons will be traded, because I think he understands that Matisse is going to have to step up and be the best perimeter defender on the team, and he's not going to be willing to give up a first team all defensive team player and a second team. I just don't think that's going to happen. No matter what player it is.
I tend to agree.
So
I tend to agree. I only have him listed once.
Yeah, I think the defense. I think Joel Embiid is actually underrated as a defender in this league. I don't think enough people talk about just how good he is when he puts the effort in, because I feel like a lot of times he does not have to put as much effort in because of Ben Simmons. I just think if Ben Simmons is traded, he is going to have to put more effort in. I think Maxey, if Ben Simmons is traded, is going to show you a lot more defensively than you might think. But Dibes, it seems like I want you to get some words in, so I don't want to go too far into it. Actually, are we even on track anymore? We're talking about trades.
We got off track, but real quick, just to get back on track, Kyle Lowry, we don't want to sign and trade for, right? No. I don't think we want to trade Ben Simmons for the right to give a 37-year-old a bunch of money.
I didn't want to trade him for Danny Green and Tyrese Maxey. I sure as hell don't want to trade him for Ben Simmons.
Agreed.
No, I'm out on Kyle Lowry. My quick take on the whole Ben Simmons defense thing is just be careful what you wish for. Like we've seen the Sixers exposed defensively again and again without Ben Simmons. When everyone wants to bury this guy, and there's so many things to blame for the collapse of the Sixers in the second round again and again. Like so many people, you look at local media, you look at Twitter, you look at social media, like everyone wants to just, funnel everything towards Ben Simmons. That's not the case.
Nope.
That's not what happened. It's Doc Rivers. It's Joel Embiid's fourth quarter play. It's Tobias Harris just forgetting how to shoot with the last 3 games of the season. The bench. There's so many variables, and that's my only take is, we can, we talk about all these trades, but man, like this is going to be one of those, be careful what you wish for kind of podcast, because a year from now we could be looking at this podcast and be like, damn.
You have to remember
For
that
sure.
Ben Simmons in the series against Atlanta was really doing pretty well on Trae Young, as much as it may not have seemed like it sometimes. Even in Game 4, Game 7, Trae Young scored only 21 points, shooting 25 of 23 from the field. Like, I don't think enough people talked about this. Ben Simmons ended with 13 assists, and made Trae Young be very inefficient. So, as much as you want to sit there and say, yes, Ben Simmons didn't score, you got to remember Ben Simmons wasn't scoring all year. Ben Simmons had his lowest points per game, I think, either of his career or in a long time with the Sixers this past year. And it's because he was giving up shots to Tobias and Joel Embiid. And it's as simple as that. His job was not the scorer on this team. And I think people look too much at that. I understand when Toby and Joel are being inefficient and aren't hitting shots, then you want him to step up. But you have to remember that was not his job with this team. Although, once again, I also understand that to optimize this offense, you probably want to get a guard that can score, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just think in terms of what Dives was saying, which Ben's not the only problem. Like, no. if you watch that series and you're like, oh, Ben Simmons is the only problem, you don't get basketball, and that's fine. You can talk about it on a surface level.
We've had a shit ton of comments exactly saying that in quotes.
Yeah, no, it's fine, but it's easy. That's the easy thing to do, and that's what Philadelphia does best. And I'm a Philadelphia fan. I'm wearing a hat. I have the stuff behind me, but I'm a Philadelphia fan. But what we do best, instead of accepting losing and trying to address the list of problems that we may have on a team, we like, because it's easy to blame one person. It's like, oh, well, if that one person was gone next year, everything's going to be all right. And that's the easiest way to reestablish hope without accepting failure. And
like, for instance, I personally don't think Brett Brown was the worst coach ever.
Someone go find him on a beach and apologize.
Let's remember. Here's the thing. I don't even think it's that. Look at the roster construction for a long time while he was here. The roster construction was not good. And to be honest with you, I was saying this for a while. And mind you, I'm also saying I don't think Brett Brown is like this amazing coach. But I also think the roster construction around Ben and Joel was god awful for a long time. Everyone was screaming for a long time they need shooters around them to at least be competitive. And guess what? They got shooters around them and they were competitive. They weren't up to snuff in the fourth quarter. Simple as that. So I'm so proud of you. I think that's a point. What's up?
I'm so proud of you for calling that out.
Calling what out?
Just like Tobias Harris and just everything. Like, it's just this is just something that is so trendy right now in sports radio. And
I don't listen to sports radio. Watch basketball and I say what I'm thinking.
And we've gotten so many comments here on the YouTube channel. Like, this is it. That's what the beauty of basketball is, that like it's a team game. And if you're
a team game glorified as a selfish one-on-one sport at times.
All right, let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, just real quick before I wrap this up with a bow. It's going to be like, there are other problems on this team. Like you said, it's Tobias, it's Doc, it's the bench, it's, Seth Curry being the most important player on our team in the playoffs, it felt like at times. Like, there are a ton of problems. Doc Rivers, 98 and 94 in the playoffs, 29 career losses with a chance to clinch a playoff game, blown 3-3-1 series leads. He's the only coach ever to blow multiple. Like, he's a 6-9 record in Game 7, 4 Game 7 losses at home. No one's ever had more than 2. Like, Doc Rivers is a serious problem to look at going forward. But whatever, major problem. Like,
I actually don't blame Doc too much for Seth Curry being the second best player on this team in this series. Tobias just was not making shots. Tobias was getting open looks at the rim the whole game in Game 7. He was getting open mid-range shots. He was getting open three-point looks. Seth Curry was also getting open shots. He just seemed to be hitting them all series. Like, I personally think, yes, Seth Curry was one of the best players in the playoffs for the Sixers. But I don't think that's because Doc, I think Doc just goes to what was working. And that's what I saw there. But that's just my opinion. Let's get into some more trades.
So let's move on to a funny one here. This one's literally on here just for jokes, just to make people upset. The Orlando Magic. Jonathan Isaac, who's one of like my low-key favorite players in the league. Hopefully he can get some of his teammates to go to his sermons and he can stop hurting his knee. But Jonathan Isaac and a fella named Markelle Fultz. I don't know if you ever heard of him. I don't know if you guys would do that for Ben Simmons. I don't think Markelle Fultz has ever played here before, so he's just like a random point guard we could trade for, you know.
No.
and then to give Brian Michael Jacobs a shout out. I did not like this trade offer, but I'll put it on here. He said Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, and the 5th and 8th pick. I don't think he realizes
the 5th and 8th pick.
Yeah, but also it doesn't really fit what we're trying to trade Ben to find someone to compete with Joel right now, and I don't think the 5th and 8th pick are doing that.
Yeah. I get the
value
proposition. I actually really like Cole Anthony, but I don't think he fits the timeline. And exactly. I mean, not that Tyrese Maxey does fit the timeline, but he also has played with him. He's also played with the team now for a year. But I do personally like Cole Anthony's game, and I think he is going to be pretty good at some point.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit of a chucker. But
yes, he's a chucker. Yes, he's a chucker. Yeah. But I think sometimes chuckers, once they're in the league long enough, get really good.
He definitely has that upside for sure. And then another one was just a bunch of Cole Anthony, Mo Bamba, Terrence Ross, 8th pick. I'm not doing anything with Orlando. There's nothing worth doing.
I do have one thing to say: is that Cole Anthony was a lot better than I expected his rookie year. I actually was like anti Cole Anthony this time heading into the draft. Oh, big time. You can go look at my scouting report videos and breakdowns and my write-ups on Cole Anthony. And I was impressed. I was impressed with Cole Anthony. He was way better than I expected.
I think that was before my time here, Dibes.
I was not very big on Cole Anthony either from watching him in UNC. It was a tough situation, and I probably shouldn't have judged him for it, but he did not inspire much confidence.
Nobody.
Yeah, no, he didn't.
He had no one. I personally, when guys are in college and they have to do everything themselves, I don't hold if it's really bad, I don't hold them too much accountable for him. But I will say that's when you see the stars come out, like Ja Morant. Guys like Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, coming from not so big schools who are just lighting it up. So I understand what you're saying.
And then my bad.
Little love to Mo Bamba. I love that guy heading into
I had him. I had him number 2 overall.
So good.
I had him number 2 overall. I had him over Ayton.
Look at Mo Bamba. 13th percentile on post-ups, 43rd percentile as rollers to the basket in the pick and roll. Defensively, he's worse in the pick and roll, 41st percentile, and 33% in the catch and shoot. The dude, it hasn't translated. But I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful.
You just fell in love with the wingspan. You fell in love with the wingspan.
Well, he played literally a minute away from where I lived.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for real. Right out of in Chester County. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, I was rooting for him big time. He was one of not even for basketball purposes, just because he played right down the road.
No, that's me with Mike Trout.
I love Trout too. But Bamba to me, real quick. I had him 2 overall behind Luka, and it's funny that I got one so right, and I got 2 so wrong. But oh well.
I love that you can admit that. That means a lot to me because I as much as I love it when I'm wrong as well. I will call myself dead wrong every single time.
I was like, well, if Nerlens Noel can hit 35% of his threes, I'm in. I'm down. But
I was 100% team Noel. I was 100% team.
Me too. I love Nerlens. But getting to an OKC trade here that I actually like, and people are going to call me crazy for this. I've already taken some heat for it. Kemba Walker and Lou Dort and the 18th pick for Ben Simmons. And the appeal here to me, obviously, the 18th pick is just a role player. That's someone you're plugging in there that's cost controlled. Lou Dort is really, really good. Lou Dort, I don't think people realize this because he's on a terrible team. Lou Dort would have led the Sixers in 3-pointers attempted last year, and he shot it 35%. And that is not his appeal. His appeal is that he's maybe the best perimeter defender outside of Ben Simmons in the league, maybe? Like, Lou Dort is a top 5 perimeter defender in the league, no matter how you slice it. So that's the one part of replacing Ben Simmons. And then the other part, this is the tricky part. And even me, I don't know if I can sell myself on this, but to me, it feels like Kemba Walker's getting written off here, and I don't necessarily understand it. I know he's terrible on defense. I know he was a liability. His defensive analytics aren't quite as bad as they should be for someone who the NBA community is generally throwing in the trash right now down in Oklahoma City. They're putting them in the dumpster behind the Oklahoma City Applebee's. But I think Kemba Walker had some skills. 2 years ago, he looked excellent. Like, he was excellent 2 years ago, and I just think people are writing Kemba off at the wrong time. And Kemba, if he could come in, be a 6-man behind Maxey, and then you have Dort as the perimeter defender with Matisse, I think that's interesting. I'm sorry.
I understand how it could be interesting, but I'm going to be honest. The only person that I want from OKC is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's it.
Well, it's not happening.
I know it's not going to happen, but it ultimately, like, that's the only guy I'd want from that team. I think you can get a better, and don't get me wrong, I think Kemba is really good, and I think if you had Kemba from 2 years ago before the consistent injuries and just everything, like, I would probably say, okay, yeah, it makes sense. He'd be good next to Joel. I would rather go with a guy who just isn't constantly injured. And here's the problem is it's not even like he's had like injuries that like he gets a lot of lingering injuries. Kemba gets a lot of lingering injuries.
Sure.
It's not like it's it's not like it's like a broken finger or like a George Hill broken thumb or like it's like he like snapped his leg. Like he's got like hamstring issues. I don't remember all his injuries.
Knee. It's really he's got a degenerative knee at this point. But by the way, just going back to the George Hill thumb injury, I'm going to take broken thumbs seriously for the rest of my life after seeing how terrible George Hill was after one. But
I personally think he just was constantly out of rhythm, dude. He had never had an actual spot on this team. He really didn't. I personally think, like, don't get me wrong, he didn't play up to par on offensively, I think, how he wanted to, but I also don't think that he was as involved in this offense as we thought he was going to be. I think everyone thought he was going to come in and play that Shake Milton role and move and get Shake Milton less minutes. But what it seemed to be is, especially in the playoffs, is George Hill played a lot of minutes with Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, and Tyrese Maxey. And most of the time, those three guys had the ball instead of a guy like George, and George would play off ball more than anything else. And considering we're a very feed the post kind of team, George Hill didn't really get involved in the offense much. George Hill was just a guy they would throw on the perimeter to defend one of their better offensive players. So I personally don't hold it against him as much as I think you are.
Yeah, there's nothing, and you guys can attest to this with my insane posting in the Discord, but there is nothing that drives me crazier than players who shoot threes and then come here and stop shooting threes. It's just Tobias Harris, George Hill.
That's not his fault.
He's the main culprit I've ever seen of it. Like he's shot the least threes per 36 of his entire career. But getting back to, we'll talk George Hill because he's in a couple trades. But Kemba Walker, there's a couple comments on here that I wanted to see. Got to see where his health's at. Obviously, I think this must be Kemba. Kemba behind Maxey. The only reason I said behind Maxey is because we're talking about his injuries. I think it would be good to bring him as like a sixth man, as an instant offense, is like kind of Lou Williams from 5 years ago, maybe.
That's a lot of money to be paying your sixth man.
Yeah, I get it, but that's definitely a vote of confidence in Tyrese Maxey, and Lou Dort would be playing a lot as well. And then the 18th pick is kind of just, maybe we use that for a different trade, or maybe we draft someone who can fill in right away, or whatever. So I'd rather let Maxey start at this point. Yeah, I could definitely see. You look at Maxey's per 36 numbers; it's hard to not want to see him getting a lot more minutes. But let's move on to our next trade here, and this is one that Austin Krell is going to hate. So let's talk about D'Angelo Russell and the Minnesota Timberwolves. D'Angelo Russell for Ben Simmons is my original one, but I think we can get more than just D'Lo, so let's do with the one that's been suggested all over. D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley for Ben Simmons and George Hill. What do you guys think?
Oh,
No.
I think the D'Lo hates a little much personally, but I'm not a fan.
He
sucks.
He is the definition of a chucker, as you said before. He's one of okay. Personally, for me, if we're talking about a guy we want who's gonna have a high play high IQ basketball, feed his teammates when they need to be fed, and play good basketball at the end of a game, to me, that's not the guy. Like, I personally would rather have Tyrese Maxey in there than D'Lo right now. And I know D'Lo shoots threes very well.
I love Tyrese Maxey. I think that's crazy.
And here's the thing. I'm not going to lie to you. I used to like D'Lo until I learned what a good point guard looked like.
Well, I don't necessarily think that point guard is this unicorn position in the NBA where everyone has to fill a certain void for that. But D'Angelo Russell's is just a scorer. It's hard to look past.
That's not what you need on the Sixers right now. You need a guy who's a facilitator. Yes, but you also need if you're losing Ben Simmons, you're losing one of the top 5 facilitators in this league.
I think you also need an initiator. You also need a playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
D'Lo doesn't bring those. He doesn't bring those things.
I'm just saying he's shot over 30% on volume 3-point attempts over the last 4 years. He was the best.
Over 30%.
He was 37%.
Okay,
37%.
Oh,
wow. My bad. He shot over. I didn't notice.
He better shoot over 30%.
He shot 37.
I will never get the image of D'Lo going ice in my veins during the summer league game versus Ben Simmons. Anybody else remember that?
I remember.
Am I that old? All right.
I'm not a D'Lo fan. It sounds like all these people I'm defending. I'm not really a D'Lo fan. This sounds terrible now. I wanted Okafor instead of D'Lo. I'm crazy. I was not a D'Lo guy, but I think that the public discourse around D'Angelo Russell over the last couple of years is I don't think it's very smart personally. He's been in some weird situations, and maybe that's his fault. Maybe he signed in the wrong places. Maybe he went to the wrong places. But he signed with Golden State after the Clay injury, and they were filling him in for Golden State. And he was not a perfect fit there. He was taking 10 threes a game and shooting 37.4% for Golden State, and they were playing terrible without Stephen Clay and Dre. But he has really turned into a legitimately good volume 3-point shooter. Terrible defender. He's an absolutely terrible defender. There's no defending that. I don't think he's as bad as a passer as you guys think he does. And I can't forget that year in Brooklyn where he was the best player and an all-star on a team that was the surprise of the league in a way that the Knicks were this year. And I don't think he gets a lot of credit for that because of the years since in Golden State and Minnesota. I'm not saying I would even do this necessarily, by the way. I'm just saying that it's in that Sexton Garland level for me of I would consider it.
I also think that team in general, the Nets, that Nets team was actually better than I think a lot of people thought it was going to be. If you look at what year was that? What year was that where they were in the playoffs against us?
I mean, I can tell you who was on the team. It was Dinwiddie,
Karis LeVert.
The guys, Karis LeVert, the guys that they traded for James Harden, the guys that, they still had Joe Harris, they had Tari and Prince.
There was a lot of guys on that team that were legit, good offensive players and defensive players. Young, they were young at the time, but there was a lot of really good players on that team, and I think the team was actually underrated in a lot of ways, and they had good vets on the team too. So
this is a good point here too. Malik Beasley and D'Lo are 24, and also Malik Beasley's a weirdo off the court and kind of a scumbag if you look at his record, but he's a bucket. That dude's a walking bucket. I've loved Malik Beasley since the Denver Nuggets days when I thought he wasn't getting enough run, and I think Denver Nuggets looks like they could use a guy like that nowadays with Jamal and Jokic and Porter. They could really use a guy at the 2 like him, and I think that could have been Malik Beasley, but he's.
No, I think Ben is a perfect fit in Minnesota. He's exactly what they kind of need. That defensive identity.
I was gonna say I think they thought when Minnesota drafted Jarrett Culver, they thought he was gonna come in and be a really good defender and be a 3-point shooter for them, kind of like what DeAndre Hunter is for Atlanta, and Jarrett Culver's just been bad. And so I think Ben Simmons going in there would definitely help them out a lot, especially playing next to Cat, who's a perfect stretch 5 for him. But I don't know. I don't think the Sixers I'd be kind of surprised if the Sixers made that move.
I could just see Daryl.
D'Lo would be liked in Philly just because he is like that offensive guy who's gonna hit long threes. He's gonna hit big shots. He's gonna play to the crowd. I don't know. I think there's better deals on the table than that personally.
I didn't know Anthony Edwards' usage rate was that high. It's over 27%.
He's a dribbler, man.
You talking about a chucker.
He reminded me of James Harden a lot with how much he was dribbling the basketball at times. Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about a chucker. Anthony Edwards, the chucker. I don't think D'Lo can classify as a chucker with how efficient he's been lately. There's bad shots. If they're bad shots, they're going in at a pretty good clip. So I like D'Angelo Russell a lot for this team at this point. And I'm not even a big D'Angelo Russell guy, but I just think he can go get a bucket. And he's the type of guy that, Daryl might look at and be like, this guy shot 10 threes a game a couple of years ago and hit 37% of them. Like, he might just be like, you plug that in with Joel Embiid, there's a championship. I don't care what people think about D'Angelo. Yeah, by the way, let's just say if I could trade Embiid. I thought they said Ben first. If I could trade Ben for the number 1 pick and Cade, I would do that a million times out of a million. And I'm sure I'll talk Cade a million times before the draft. I think he's a Luka level prospect. I absolutely love Cade Cunningham. But let's get to the next trade. The next trade is it's a famous one. This is one of the big tentpole ones. We're talking about the Chicago Bulls. We're talking about Zach LaVine and Thad Young for Ben Simmons, or Zach LaVine and Al-Farouq Amino for Ben Simmons. That's really just going to come down to Chicago might look at Thad Young as a positive asset that they don't want to trade, even though he's, I believe, expiring. They might just say, take Amino instead because we want to keep Thad Young around. So I know Dibes has some stats with Zach LaVine.
Yeah, there it is. So 48.6% in the catch and shoot from three. 1.14 points per possession ISO, amazing, 90th percentile. Crushes it as a ball handler in the pick and roll, 82nd percentile. Great in transition. Zach LaVine is it, man. I did a video and I've been getting killed because of it, because I made a wish list of my top 5 guys. It wasn't necessarily realistic guys, just guys I would love to see in Sixers blue. But Zach LaVine gives you everything you want. I would love to see this guy paired next to Joel Embiid.
Yeah, for sure. And for the people that are saying the Sixers would have to give up more than Simmons for LaVine, or the Bulls hang up the phone laughing, if Zach LaVine wants out, which is perfectly possible, I think that there's already some news or some rumors around that. Who are the Bulls getting that's better than a Ben Simmons package for Zach LaVine? Who's calling Chicago with a better offer than Ben Simmons? Because if you guys have them in the comments, I'm perfectly willing to listen to it. But this exercise has really made me more confident that the Sixers will get good value for Ben Simmons, because there's so many places he does make sense. Chicago makes a lot of sense for Ben Simmons. As a team that's stuck in a rebuild, they just traded for Vucevic. That's a big that can shoot. That fits perfectly with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons could cover up some of his defensive inefficiencies. Kobe White is a point guard that they have a lot of faith in. Lauri Markkanen's a guy who makes a lot of sense with Ben Simmons, even if they're going to keep him around. So there's a lot of things on that Chicago team that make sense for Ben Simmons. So I don't think that this is something that Chicago would have no interest in. Maybe the Sixers would have to attach something, maybe.
And I think also that Ben Simmons' game could be opened up a lot more on that team. And I think the same thing with Minnesota when it comes to Ben's post play. But Ben doesn't get a lot of opportunity to put himself in the post as much with the Sixers because he plays with guys like Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, who are more efficient than he is at right this second at those kind of shots. So I think on a team like that, where they don't have a lot of guys who can post up, a 6'10 point guard or 6'10 power forward, wherever they would use him as, would definitely bode well in that position. And I think Zach LaVine is, if that trade were to happen, I think both teams come away pretty happy, being that Zach LaVine is a bucket, he's a bucket, simple as that. He can score anywhere on the court. He's hitting shots from 30 feet. He also can score at will at the rim, in the mid range, pull ups everywhere. He has it. Personally, out of any trade, unless you're talking about Damian Lillard, and even in this case, I don't think you have to give up as much for Zach LaVine. I think that's the best trade you could make. I even thought that at the deadline. I thought, but at the trade deadline this year, I think I think Zach LaVine for a while has been the best asset you could get for Ben Simmons if you want to move him.
Something I want to point out from Dive's stats that he had that really stood out to me was the 2.6 catch and shoot threes per game. That's a low number for a guy that took 8.2 threes per game. And what that means is he can go get his own bucket and he can dribble into a three. And that is exactly what the Sixers could use. And that's what the Sixers were lacking in those situations where it felt like we had to do so much to get offense created. Seth Curry had to touch the ball coming around a screen. Joel had to set a screen. Everything we had to do was so difficult. With a guy like Zach LaVine, he makes offense a whole hell of a lot easier. And I personally prefer this greatly to even like a Bradley Beal trade. I think, and this is a hot take, I think Zach LaVine's a better player than Bradley Beal. He's a markedly better defender than Bradley Beal is. And he's barely less of like he scored a couple less points per game on better and more efficient 3-point shooting. And to think Zach LaVine has become a more efficient 3-point shooter than Bradley Beal is just something that I couldn't even have imagined a couple of years ago. And like I was talking about earlier, it just speaks volumes to the level of work ethic that Zach LaVine puts into his craft. And he's become such a better player than anyone really could have even expected. And a couple comments here. Why would Blazers and Bulls trade their franchise player? Why are they unloading LaVine? Someone said, what was the comment I said? I think the Bulls would have to attach something. No way the Bulls would take him. So here's what I think. I actually don't think either side would have to attach anything. I think this is going to be kind of close to a straight up deal because, like I said, the Bulls kind of have to make a move. Like, I don't think that they're just going to sit on their hands for the next 2 years and keep getting the 8th pick. They didn't even get their pick this year, and they traded a first rounder. And then someone said, why are the Blazers trading their franchise players? They've had the same team for like 5 years, and they can't. There's a clear glass ceiling that they can't break through. So they're going to have to make a move.
And with that, the Blazers, I do want to say I did see a report today that the Portland told CJ that he's not going to be traded this summer. Now, obviously, teams have said that before, and players have said they want to stay at a team before. I don't know how truthful that report was, but I did see that today. But I do want to say that, like Mark just said, that team's been playing well for a while, and hasn't been winning for a while. And a lot of that has to do with not having good enough defense. And they thought adding Robert Covington was going to do that for them, and it obviously wasn't to the level that they needed it on the perimeter, at least. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Also, I think they also have a promising guard in Anthony Simons coming up as well. So go ahead.
Who is the general manager of the Chicago Bulls?
It's a new guy. Man.
Mark Eversley from the Philadelphia 76ers. So there's a connection, guys. And I fully agree that probably the Sixers would need to add a little bit there.
I think they would too.
I would do it. Yeah,
I would do it.
I would consider it. Yeah, it depends. Depends, yeah. If Maxi Matisse, how many firsts? It obviously depends what that is. If it's like shaking a first.
I personally think that if that was going to be a move, I think Milton would be the first guy that they'd be willing to give up. I think it's the fact that you're giving up Ben already, giving up Ben, like, I think his ceiling with Chicago is pretty high. Personally, I do, and I think Zach is going to say, "Listen, dude, I want to win," and he'll probably be like, "Agent, hey, if they're asking, I want it. like I want to go play with Joel Embiid." You know how much easier Zach LaVine's life would be if he played with a guy like Joel, where it's not just him having to get buckets at all times.
That's what we want. That's what
I'm saying. Yes, exactly.
He went on First Take a couple years ago and said how much he'd love to play with Joel and he'd love to play in Philly too. I'd have to unearth that clip. Yeah, I'll find that clip and reply to this podcast with it on Twitter. I remember freaking out about it at the time. So let's move on. There's another trade here. We're all going to say no. Kobe White, Patrick Williams, Thad Young, and a first-round pick. We're all going to say no. So let's talk Sacramento. Sacramento is one of those teams where it's tough to gauge where they value their players, kind of like Toronto, kind of like San Antonio. And let's just have a Tyrese Halliburton conversation. Where is Tyrese Halliburton in value? Does Sacramento hang up the phone just because he's so new and such a young piece on a rookie contract and they have a hard time having people stay around? Is that something? Yeah, Tyrese Halbert and Buddy Hield for Ben Simmons. And then I also have Tyrese Halbert and Harrison Barnes for Ben Simmons and Tyrese Halbert and DeLon Wright and Bagley for Ben Simmons. Is Tyrese Halbert someone that's attainable?
First of all, I want to say I love Tyrese Halliburton.
I do too.
Tyrese Halliburton was one of my favorite guys to watch in the league.
Yeah.
Over this year. You go watch his highlights, man. The guy has an effortless 3-point shot, and it just goes in at such a high rate. He has a handle. He has an insanely good IQ. He's got one of one of the top IQs I've seen as a rookie coming into the league lately.
100%.
Like if you actually if you listen to the guy talk, like he literally says a lot on podcasts that he was surprised when he came into the league just how not good some guys are. He didn't say it like that exactly, but basically said that. Like he was surprised just how some bigs or some guys that were longtime vets in the league didn't understand concepts at times. Like he is a very, very smart player. And I think he would do very, very well on this Sixers team. So I would love him on this team. But kind of like you're saying, I really don't know how Sacramento values him because they do have De'Aaron Fox. And De'Aaron Fox is also a promising guard in the NBA. So it's just like De'Aaron Fox, when he's hitting his 3-point shot, is literally unguardable.
Yeah,
De'Aaron
for sure.
Fox is one of those guys that is so athletic and so good in every other aspect that when he's hitting his 3-point shot, he's unguardable. So I don't know.
People are going to comment like that would only want Fox for Ben. And I know Fox was on Dive's list from earlier. I just don't think Sacramento is going to trade Fox, so I didn't put it on here.
It's a wish list, guys.
No, yeah, for sure.
But I love Halliburton. When we did this whole NBA draft process last year, this time, me, Tiago, Austin, we did like 60 scouting reports. And then when we were done with that, we did our top 10. Halliburton was my number one. And I love, I'm dead serious. I am all in on Halliburton. I'm not the biggest fan of Buddy Hield, but like as a last resort,
I don't like Buddy.
Like I would probably do this trade. If this is if there's
would you rather Harrison Barnes?
What's that?
Would you rather Harrison Barnes?
Would I add Harrison Barnes?
Would you rather Barnes than Hield? I had the two trades right next to each other because I think that they're similarly valued, probably Harrison Barnes and Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield, obviously, more volume shooter, better offensive player. Barnes probably hurts you a little bit less on the defensive end.
Personally, I think Hield would be a better guy to get just because he is a 3-point shooter, and I think coming off the bench could be a guy that you would like to have on the roster. But personally, I also don't think Hield is like I don't put a good big value on Hield. Hield is.
I disagree. I like Hield.
He's good. Don't get me wrong. He's good. He's good. But I don't think he
good at it. He doesn't do anything else.
That's fair. That's fair.
Listen. I don't think Buddy Hield is going to be a guy who makes you better on a championship team. I don't think he's a guy that is going to like be in the starting lineup for the Sixers and like I would rather have Seth Curry at the shooting guard than him.
Yeah, Seth Curry's a better player than Buddy Hield for sure. I agree with that.
So that's my point, though, is like why, to me, if you're trying to trade your guy who's supposed to be your second or third star on your team, and you get back a Buddy Hield, and he's playing it, you want him to like add value to your team. I think you have other guys on this roster that you would rather play over Buddy. Personally,
Buddy Hield is such an elite shooter in the NBA that he can get minutes on any team. Elite, he is an absolutely elite shooter in the NBA.
Mark, you would have more drives to the basket than Buddy Hield in an NBA game.
No, I get it. I get it. But the fact that he's shooting 39% and averaging near 20 a game when everyone
how many shots does he shoot to get to that percentage?
He's shooting. He's never shot below 39% from three.
Yeah, but how many shots is he shooting to get that percentage though?
14 last year.
That's a lot.
It's okay. He shot 39% from three. If you're going to take 14 shots, make 10.2 of them be threes. I'm absolutely fine with that. I like 3-point shooting. Maybe maybe that's a sickness that I've gotten while watching the Sixers over the last couple of years. But it seems like a guy like Buddy Hield. I get that Seth Curry's on the court. There's enough minutes for both of those guys, 100%. And with how good they are, I think they could play together.
I feel here's my thought. It's been my thought about Buddy Hield for a while. When people are like, "Hey, we want to trade for him," I personally think that you need on the Sixers right now. You have a lot of guys who can shoot the three, and get to the paint. That's what you have a lot of. You don't have a lot of guys who are efficient in the mid-range area besides Joel and Tobias. And even Tobias doesn't do that, doesn't go to the mid-range consistently, and hasn't gone to the mid-range consistently and been super consistent until this year. I think Buddy Hield, you're adding a guy who shoots a lot of threes, and yes, shoots a decent percentage from three, obviously. But I think that kind of player you can have for a lot cheaper. I think you can sign JJ Redick to the mid-level exception this summer. Cooked. I'm not saying he's not cooked, but I'm saying he's a same kind of three-point shooter that Buddy Hield is, not volume-wise, but percentage-wise. And I think you'd rather have that guy on a lower deal than have Buddy Hield for the next 2-3 years for $20+ million. I don't need that. It's fine.
I definitely disagree that I don't think him and JJ Redick are you're not getting comfort. I know that you're saying at a less value. I get it. But our 3-point attempt leader last year shot 6 threes a game, and Buddy took 10.2. So I definitely think that could help the Sixers. But let's move on. Halliburton's the main piece of this deal also, by the way. Yes. We're getting Tyrese Halbert and Buddy Hield. And I wasn't huge on Halliburton in the draft. Halliburton was probably the guy in the draft that I had the least opinion on. It was kind of like, oh yeah, I have him 6th or 7th. Like I saw him and I was like, oh, he's a good player. Way outperformed what I expected in the NBA, shooting 41% from 3, I think on like 5 or 6 attempts. That is just absolutely excellent stuff. And
he's a ball player.
Absolutely. And he's fit with Fox way better than even I expected. So
I agree. I didn't think when he came up on the board in the draft, I did not think they were going to draft him because I was like, they just signed De'Aaron Fox to an extension. No way they pick him. And then they picked him, and I was like, well, that's interesting. And then he ended up being a way better 3-point shooter than anybody expected.
Justin, he was one of the highest IQs, easily.
Oh, yeah.
The highest IQs heading into this draft. Easy.
Yep. I think my concern with Halliburton, I saw someone say, I'm not going to go find the comment, but I saw someone say it about his upside or if he's a star or not, and I don't know if Tyrese Halbert has that ability to get to that superstar level. I think he really projects as Malcolm Brogdon. I don't know what their size is, but they're both such efficient, effective, smart players. I think that there's a lot of comparisons between Halliburton and Brogdon. Halliburton's just a younger version. Joel's the problem. That seems insane to me. But
it's a documented problem. It's not a Joel Embiid problem.
Yeah. Joel Embiid's unbelievable. The people who are mad at Joel Embiid, it's whatever. I get he wasn't perfect, but
let's keep on rolling.
Yeah. Seriously, we got a
lot of trades to go through.
I'm just going to run through these we're not saying yes to these. Hield, Bagley, 9th pick for Ben. No. Harrison Barnes, Bagley, 9th pick for Ben. No. We're not doing those, whatever, even if I like Hield more than you guys. So let's get to New Orleans. This is an interesting one. 3-way trade. The only 3-way trade I have on here. I have 2 of them. Brandon Ingram to Philly, Zach LaVine to NOLA, Ben Simmons to Chicago. So this makes sense if we want Brandon Ingram more than we want Zach LaVine, and if NOLA, because Ben doesn't make a lot of sense with Zion, if they're like, oh, we want to go get a LaVine or we want to go get someone like a Beal or a CJ, and that's the next one as well. Ingram to Philly, CJ to NOLA, Ben to Portland. Let's not worry about who the third piece is or where Ben is going in this one because we've kind of talked about those teams already. But Brandon Ingram, it's funny that we're sitting here 5 years later talking about Ben Simmons and Brandon Ingram. But what would if you're saying where does Brandon Ingram rank among CJ McCollum, Malcolm Brogdon? Because I think you guys will have him lower than that LaVine, Beal, Lillard tier. Where does Ingram rank back as a potential piece that we could get back?
I mean, personally, I like Ingram. I just, I don't know. To me, he's a step above Tobias Harris, but like even then, it's like another. Like I think you need a guard. I don't think you need another forward personally. That's just my opinion.
I don't really have, I mean, if like I said, if we're trading Ben Simmons just because he wants out, Ben Simmons wants to be gone, and there's like not many phone calls heading Daryl Morey's way, but Brandon Ingram is available and on the table. Yes, fine. But this is definitely like in the lower tier of where we should go. Clearly,
I think he's higher than some though. I think he's right in the middle for me personally. I don't think he's a lower tier. I think he's right in the middle.
Clearly, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, clearly the ball is going to Zion Williamson's hands. I think that is definitely a fact. So it's going to be interesting where the Pelicans go moving forward. But, pound for pound, talent-wise, if we're going to just shoot for ceiling, potential, sure. But this is definitely on the lower bottom tier for me.
Just want to say that I'm not a Brandon Ingram guy. So this is tough for me to even choke out. But this is a vote of confidence in Tyrese Maxey. If you made this deal, this is planting your flag, and this is being like, you know what? We think a lineup of Maxey, Seth, Ingram, Tobias, Joel is how we get this team to the next level. And you know what? I completely understand that. Yeah, Ingram slides in nicely. He put it in the same lineup I did. And Ryan Spoke said something here. Amen, Justin, because you said that you want a forward instead of a guard. And I saw Ryan ask a question earlier where he said, can you please name a 24 to 27-year-old guard who scores and plays defense? No, can you? Who's a 24 to 27-year-old guard who can shoot, play defense, and is available? Yeah. What are we talking about?
Austin Grow, I've heard. Pretty good game.
I heard that guy LeBron James. We should try to get him.
So the other three-way trade.
Yeah, the other three-way trade it's the same thing. It's really CJ McCollum to NOLA instead of Zach LaVine and Ben to go into Portland instead of Chicago. But it really comes down to how we feel about Ingram, and I'm actually surprised at how open I am to this. Just kind of, this would be, this is like a full vote of confidence in Maxey, and I'm kind of into that. But this does not rank in my top 5 or anything like that, and what I would really like to see. But if it happens, I would probably be like, interesting. Yeah, I think I would rather have Ingram than Halliburton too, just because of the upside of it. But that's an interesting conversation, and maybe I'll do a poll about that later.
This might be crazy to say, but I personally think Halliburton may have more upside than Ingram. I know that might sound crazy, but I really do think Halliburton can be a really good player, because you could be like an athletic freak or have a freakish body, but if you have an insanely good IQ and you know the game of basketball and you make right decisions consistently, and that is what Halliburton does, and he also has a good frame for the NBA. He's got the speed, has the handle. I just personally think that he could be really, really good in this league.
I think that, like I said, I view him as like a Brogdon type, but he's 20, 21 years old. So for me to be making a declarative statement on a guy's upside is definitely foolish. So I'm not saying he has no chance of reaching that. I just, looking at the athletic profile, looking at, kind of his abilities. I don't know where he's taking that leap necessarily, but he could become, just a knockdown volume 3-point shooter who's great at everything on the court. So I'm not ruling it out, but I do think that Brandon Ingram has that special level of upside. So I'm trying to type in our next one here. We're moving on. It's funny. We had the New Orleans. We're moving on to the Hornets. They used to be up New Orleans. They're in Charlotte now. We're talking Terry Rozier, PJ Washington, and the 11th pick for Ben Simmons. What do you think about that, Justin?
So obviously Terry Rozier has really upped his scoring since he was first starting out at Boston. At Boston. Obviously, he's become a very efficient scorer at times. I don't do this. I don't do this deal. I think if this is all you can get for Ben, you keep Ben. I think the 11th pick is too low to trade for him. I don't think you're going to get a guy who's. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you can get guys that are really, really good at the 11th pick. Just none of this is sexy enough to me. Simple.
No, that's definitely fair. That's 100% fair. I would probably rather the Cleveland trade. I'd rather Halliburton. I'd rather Russell. I'd rather Ingram.
Definitely.
So I'm not into this really at all, and I don't think Dives will be either. So I'll continue on to the next one. And this is just like I don't even know how to frame this. San Antonio. I have no idea who they think is like good on their team. Like I have no idea if they think Deshonte Murray or Derek White are the guy. Like I have no idea if they think Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell are like distinguishable from each other. Like I don't know who they're offering, but I put 2 or 3 of Deshonte, Derek White, Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell for Ben Simmons. They also have the I believe the 13th pick or the 12th pick. So that is also a factor here. I guess it's just create your own. I know you have a guy that you like on this list, Justin. So yep. I'll let you talk it out. I don't know what your ideal Spurs package looks like.
So I don't think I have an ideal one. I do think if you want to bring the most value from that team, I think it's Deshonte Murray and Lonnie Walker for what you're giving up in Ben Simmons. Because in Deshonte Murray, you're getting a guy who is a good playmaker, is good at making plays and getting out in transition. Also a very good defender right now, young and still a very good defender, gets a lot of steals, scores in the paint pretty well, can shoot but doesn't get a lot of shots outside, and has been working on that part of his game. Lonnie Walker, I actually have witnessed him play up close and personal a lot. I am from around Reading, Pennsylvania, and that is where he went to high school before he went to the University of Miami to play. Lonnie Walker is an athletic freak at 6'5". He is legitimately an athletic freak. The guy can jump out of the gym, can shoot the ball over anybody because his jump shot is one of those like high jumping jump shots kind of thing. Great form, has a mid-range game, can get to the rim either way, can pull up anywhere. Like he's just one of those guys that I think can eventually be really good. And I think at this time right now could be a good bench piece for your team. He's kind of like, I think eventually he could be that microwave type guy off the bench. And, you know, maybe he gets even better than that. Maybe he gets to a point where he's already a decent defender. Maybe he gets to the point where he's a great defender and is just a bucket. So we'll see. I think the Spurs have slowly given him more responsibility on that team. He kind of came in and was really riding the bench, played some G League as well. And over the last few seasons, he's gotten more opportunity. And it's tough, obviously, when you're also playing – he's a shooting guard playing behind DeMar DeRozan. So I think that – don't get me wrong, like, listen, Philly RB, you're probably not wrong. I'm probably overrating him a little bit there, definitely, because I personally really like Lonnie Walker. But I do think he is a really good offensive player and could like grow into something more.
Yeah, he would definitely be one of the guys I would want for sure.
And I will also point out that I wanted Philadelphia to draft him or Mikal Bridges in the draft, where we ended up trading Mikal Bridges for Zaire Smith. I want to point that out. Both Lonnie Walker and Mikal Bridges have both become good starters for two different teams, and Zaire Smith is not even in the league anymore.
I do want to throw in that I think this is one of the most underrated trades available
I
right
agree.
now. Ben Simmons.
I agree.
I think this is like I said, I want some of the bigger names. I am team like, you know, don't take the lesser pieces. Like let's throw in pieces and get a better fit for Joel Embiid, a number 2 go-to scorer. But this, you know, I think low-key kind of solves a little bit of the Sixers pick-and-roll defensive issues. Derek White, Deshonte Murray are top-notch when it comes to defending the pick-and-roll. Of course, Deshonte Murray is not a great three-point shooter. I love Lonnie Walker too, Justin. I was a big fan of his in the draft. But these are all, you know, other than Deshonte Murray, Derek White, Lonnie Walker, very good from three. What I love about Murray, what I love about Derek White, they're drivers, man. If you know, these are two guys that will put pressure on the defense and penetrate, which the Sixers do not have. The Sixers do not, like, other than like, who was the biggest penetrator on the Sixers
Tyrese
roster?
Maxey.
And it was probably what, like 8 a game? 8 a game? It was like nothing. So these are two guys, Deshonte Murray and Derek White, that could easily find a role here in Doc Rivers' system. So again, like I said, this is not my first option. It's not my second, not my third, not my fifth. But I do think this is a very low-key, underrated option for the Sixers.
I would like to say, if you want to just, if anyone's interested in seeing a really fun highlight reel to watch, go watch Lonnie Walker's highlight reels. Lonnie is one of the most fun players to watch because he is one of the most explosive guys. He really is. It's insane.
I love Lonnie. He's been in my fraternity's basement, so I'm a big fan of Lonnie Walker. And I actually came into this thinking that I would be more open to, and I think that until this trade, I think that that's checked out. I've kind of been more interested in some of the outside the box offers than you guys, but this is one where I'm actually the one that's a little bit less interested. I just don't think that there's one piece out of these guys that's going to be good enough to make this trade worth it. And I'm a fan of all of them. That's the weird part. But Deshonte Murray, I just don't think we can trade Ben Simmons for a point guard who can't shoot. I get that that's that might be simple. That might be simple-minded. That might be simplifying it a little bit too much. But I don't think you can do that. I just
only thought with that is that I do think that you might be better off with the addition by subtraction here a little bit. In a sense where I think Deshonte Murray, although you're giving up Ben Simmons, who is so productive, I think just getting off of the player and adding some more young talent that could possibly grow into something. I don't even know what I'm saying. Never mind.
I kind of
he can score and shoot.
I kind of like that trio of a Seth, a Tyrese, and a Deshonte Murray just rotating, and that I don't know.
Yeah, I can't get behind this one. And my ideal one would actually probably be Derek White, Lonnie Walker. I can't decide if I'd rather have Vassell or is it Vassell or Vassell? I never know. Vassell, yeah.
I think Devin. I think it's Devin Vassell.
Vassell, yeah.
I was really in the draft too.
Yeah, I liked him too, but I don't know if I'd rather have him or just the 12th pick. It's an interesting. It's probably a better draft this year, but
It's not going to fit their timeline. They're not. Doc Rivers, Daryl Moore are not going for that.
You think Vassell or Vassell might not either?
Brian, what are you saying here? You said that.
Yeah, he can't score and shoot.
You're just asking a lot of questions. You said Deshonte Murray can really defend. Yes, Deshonte Murray can actually defend very well. He can score and shoot too.
He's saying that because Ryan Swope's saying that because he's been yelling at me about the trades that I'm not suggesting a 24 to 27-year-old guard who can score and defend. Deshonte Murray is the opposite of what you're complaining the other guys are, like CJ McCollum saying they can only play offense. Deshonte Murray is a defensive player. I know that he has some offensive value, but he's a defensive player. So
I'm probably higher on Murray than I should be.
Believe it or not, I also think that you may be better off. And this is going to sound very interesting to some people, but I think Murray actually helps your defense a lot on this roster because you do have Matisse, who's more of a wing defender, and I think Deshonte Murray is more of a guard defender in the sense where a guy like Trae Young, guys like Kemba Walker, I think you're going to have a lot better time guarding the smaller guards in the NBA with a guy like Deshonte Murray.
65th percentile defending the pick and roll, 89th percentile defending ISO situations, Deshonte Murray.
No, he's an excellent defender. And question here, what about some Tobias trades? It's really hard it's hard to suggest any trades outside of Ben Simmons on this team because of what we don't know what we're getting for Ben Simmons. So
you also have to remember Tobias is one of those guys that could be very ideal next to Joel Embiid because he's a four that can stretch the court very well. He's a guy that people have to guard from the outside, and he can also post up.
And just a couple comments like this. I've seen a lot of this. Yeah, I don't think Ben's getting traded. If I had to guess, Ben is here next year. I've seen that a bunch of times. Yeah, I'm just telling you, I'm a betting man. I'm a gambling man. I would wager my house that Ben Simmons is not playing another game in a Sixers jersey. And I'm a really big Ben fan. I'm not saying I'll riot and picket the games or something. I don't really care if he does. I'm sorry. Have you guys seen sports in the comments? Yeah. The coach doesn't come out and say he's not sure about you. Your best player doesn't come out and say that the turning point was the play you messed up and then you're just back next year. There's too many things that's been said. The cat's out of the bag. Let's wager $1. I'm down, Philly RB. I personally think don't see
it's there's a low percentage that I think there's a 25% chance that he's here in the beginning of next season, but I think there's a 0% chance that he's here after next trade deadline.
I think it's legitimately like a 0.5% chance he plays another game here ever. Like I just, it's not happening, especially with so many teams that are interested.
If teams are not valuing him enough, and guys aren't like the superstars that we think are going to say they want out, aren't wanting out of their teams, it wouldn't shock me if Daryl Morey. It would not shock me if Daryl Morey's like, okay, then I'm going to wait till next season, because obviously this team is capable of winning in the regular season. And next season, just like the James Harden trade the possibility came up, maybe something else will come up, and that's when I'll make my move.
You said you said you wouldn't be shocked. I would be floored and shocked. I would be absolutely shocked. But let's get to the next trade. Indiana. This is a big one. Malcolm Brogdon and TJ Warren, the walking bucket, the Sixer killer, for Ben Simmons. Are you guys interested in that?
Yes.
I think it's one of the better. I think it's one of the better trades. Malcolm Brogdon, and we talked about this. You compared him to Tyrese Halbert in a lot of ways. He's a very smart IQ player. He gets to the rim pretty decently. Yeah, he can shoot the three consistently. There is not a lot of guys who can say they're in the 50, 40, 90 club, and he has done that. Malcolm Brogdon, I think, would be a really good player next to Joel Embiid. TJ Warren, obviously a very good scorer from just about anywhere on the court. I will say he hasn't been super efficient in his career except for the bubble season.
Mm-hmm.
And he's obviously coming off a very serious injury. But I will say I think those are two good players that you could get for value-wise for Ben.
Just three quick comments about Brogdon. His nicknames on Basketball Reference are out of this world. I didn't know about any of these, but he's Humble Moses. I knew the president. Uncle Malcolm, and then Mookie Doo.
What
incredible.
the hell?
Just want to say that's incredible. And then secondly, he's the guy who we should have signed when we signed Al Horford. We could have had Malcolm Brogdon, and that was what I was begging for at the time, and it just didn't happen. And then also Malcolm Brogdon stole a Rookie of the Year from Joel Embiid, so hopefully he can bring the trophy. He can bring it with him, give it to Joel. We can have a presentation. That'll be nice.
I love this trade. I would probably do this trade. Definitely probably mid-tier. Mid-upper tier, I think, for an available trade. You look at Brogdon's ability to defend ISO, 95th percentile. You look at his ability to score in ISO scoring, 71st percentile. It's all there, right up there. Same thing with ball handling in the pick and roll. Same thing with defending the pick and roll. 14 and a half drives to the basket per game, nearly 50% from the field. Really good for comparison purposes. Trae Young had 20 drives to the basket per game at 48%. Ben Simmons had 10. Tobias had 9 per game. This dude would be a huge, huge bonus to this roster.
You look at the jump he's made just this year. He's taken a massive jump in both volume and efficiency, and that is something that you just don't see very often. In his first year in Indiana, it was a little bit disjointed. I think he had some injuries, which is a concern with him. He does have some lingering leg injuries that seem to kind of follow him around, but he went from 14 shots a game and 4 threes per game to 17 and a half shots per game and 7 threes per game, and his efficiency goes up 2% from the field. It goes up 6% from 3, and he's obviously just an excellent foul shooter, around 86 to 92% in that range for his career, which don't know if people have seen the Sixers. We could use some good foul shooting, but Malcolm Brogdon would be a perfect fit. He can defend. He can shoot the three. He can shoot the free throws. He can get to the line. He just has so many things that he can do that would help this team. Even if he's not, that spectacular second option, the Milwaukee Bucks are in the finals with their second option being Chris Middleton, or not the finals, Eastern Conference Finals, with their second option being Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. Malcolm Brogdon could easily fit a Drew Holiday role on this team in the way that Drew fits that role on the Bucks. I think he'd be great, and TJ Warren's a walking bucket. What's up, Justin?
The only thing that concerns me about this trade a little bit, but this is going to happen in a lot of trades pretty much no matter what, is that defensively, your lineup is going to go way down, and in my opinion, because I think you have to start both these players if you make this trade. Like, even if Danny Green's on this team next year, I think you, unless you want TJ Warren being that 6th man for you, which I think is possible. But I think defensively that it does affect it. But that's, like I said, that's going to happen. That's just something I wanted to throw in for a conversation.
For sure. Ryan Swope actually just like proved me wrong. There is that player in the league. I guess it's Malcolm Brogdon. If you're saying like a player that's kind of young, can shoot, can defend, can score, Ryan Swope, go get your Brogdon jersey, dude. You're going to be all in on this guy if they trade for him. He's right up your alley. And I actually didn't think of him when you were talking earlier. So that's, shame on me. But I think that's absolutely a great trade and something that we should all be interested in. This guy is just going to keep asking what we can get for Joel Embiid, but
not talking about it.
Yeah, but
you want to talk about the second trade you were talking about for this?
Yeah, it's Karis LeVert and TJ Warren. I don't think it's enough. I'm a Karis LeVert guy, but I don't think it's enough.
Karis LeVert's also extremely injury prone to this point in his career.
For sure.
I don't even want to talk about the first one you have. For
I thought it was just fun conversation.
That's not even a possibility.
They will, yeah. Clay Thompson for Ben Simmons. Golden State's not even considering this.
No.
Just as like
it broke my heart.
Just a hypothetical, considering Clay is coming off of so many injuries. If Golden State was like Clay Thompson spit in Steph Curry's face, they can't play together anymore. We need to trade him. Would we be like worry about the knee, or do you just do it?
No, do it. Everett.
Yeah. My dad was asking, just a curious thing. My dad was asking me what I thought if Klay Thompson would be able to just be Klay Thompson again when he comes back, because he was on a commercial during one of the Sixers games, and I tend to think he can. Like,
me too.
With the way he plays, he may not be as good laterally defensively because he obviously was such a great defensive player, but I think he shouldn't really take there should be no impact negatively on his offensive game.
Dude, he's a shooter who barely jumps as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's a straight up and down shooter. Like, he is. I promise you, like, I almost 100% can tell you Klay Thompson is going to be a bucket again when he comes back in this league.
Yeah.
The dude shot. All right, look at these stats. The dude shot was at 98th percentile as a ball handler in the pick and roll, 90th percentile defending the pick and roll, 40+% in the catch and shoot from three on 6+ attempts a game. Like, how does that not? You do that trade 10 times out of 10. If that's like even available, that's an upper tier trade for Ben Simmons.
He is like that. That's like when people were like, oh, the Nets traded for KD when he's coming off of 2 huge injuries. It's like, okay, but it's KD.
Just sit in the corner.
That's my thought. That's my thought with Klay Thompson. And mind you, obviously Klay is not KD, but like that's my thought there. Is like, okay, but it's Klay Thompson. Like, imagine having Klay Thompson next to Joel Embiid. Like, literally, you know how Joel Embiid and JJ Redick had this insanely good dribble handoff? Imagine Klay Thompson in that role.
Yeah. Just a couple comments I wanted to get to here. Ben Maxey and 3 firsts for Klay. And I know we're saying you take Klay and you do it. You can't give up multiple assets like that for a guy who is coming off of an ACL and an Achilles.
And this is where I should say the comparison of KD. KD was traded for D'Angelo Russell. Like,
basically. GSW wants Andrew Wiggins for Ben Simmons. Well, I don't. We'll get to that, but that's not happening, or else I'm probably going to Sixers anymore.
Right now.
Just one more comment. I would think TJ Warren, who killed the Sixers, would clog up the paint and the spacing of the floor. The last 2 full healthy seasons, TJ Warren shot over 40% from 3, so he would help spacing, not hurt it. We don't have 3 firsts to trade. We do. We have pretty much unlimited firsts to trade outside of the stipend rule. But Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, and Eric Pascal for Ben Simmons. I'm out. Get out of my face, Bob Myers.
Let me say something.
Let me
say something.
Go ahead.
Although I do not like this trade, I would consider it if one of these players was taken out and you tossed me that first round pick this year. If Utah,
I think it's that 6.
I think it's higher than that.
I think okay. Let me look.
Can someone confirm that with me real quick, because I want to make sure I'm not saying BS.
I think it's 6.
Personally, I think you can get a really good player at one of those picks, especially at the guard position. So I think you think about it personally. If that's the worst trade you can get, and you really, really, really want to get Ben Simmons out of here, getting another small forward who's gotten a little bit better on defense in his career and can create a shot and can hit 3-pointers typically, I think you have to think about it. If they're giving you that pick, I think you have to think about it.
I'm out.
I'm not saying that I'm
I'll keep it that
completely in.
simple.
I think there are better things you can get for it. For Ben, obviously, but I'm saying that if you're hell bent on getting Ben off this team, and that is the one, if that is the best thing you can get, I think you need to get that first round pick in that deal.
Jordan Poole, I just want to say, is a guy that I think is really underrated. I was really impressed with him this year.
Mm-hmm.
His analytic numbers are off the chart. If you look at some of his off-on numbers, and he obviously shot really well from three on a lot of attempts, gets to the line pretty well for how much he played. I really like Jordan Poole, so just wanted
his
to
decision making at times though pisses me off.
For sure, he's in a weird situation for sure. I mean, that team is like so barren for playmakers outside of Steph. It felt like he was like their second best player at times. And I'm assuming Dodge is with me on the big time thumbs down there on that one.
Next.
Yeah, I don't even want to waste time talking about Andrew Wiggins' bum ass. But I can't stand him. I can't stand Andrew Wiggins. But let's get to Washington and let's have the Bradley Beal conversation. This is actually like the big name that I'm probably least interested in. And I guess that's just because I do think we would have to attach a lot to Ben, and I don't really think Ben makes any sense in Washington either. So I think this might have to be a three-way deal. Like, I think it starts getting really difficult if you make Bradley Beal your main target. I think I would look at either Portland guard or either, Brogdon or Levine. I would much rather almost any of them relative to what we'd have to give up for him. I know that Beal will probably be a popular one in the comments. He was popular on my Twitter with the polls yesterday, but Dodge has some stats with Beal.
No, it's all there. Like, if you want a bucket getter. And I thought the Sixers really defended him well.
Oh, definitely.
In the series against Washington, that first round. They really worked him. And if there's anything the Sixers fans should know about Bradley Beal is he gets his buckets. Like and this is that, is he inefficient? 100%. However, when you're talking about half court set, when you're talking about you need a number one, number two, reliable guy in a half court set in the playoffs, like there's not many better options than Bradley Beal. So you look at 74th percentile in the pick and roll, 38% in the catch and shoot, 77.3% of his points came from drives to the basket. This guy paired next to Joel Embiid would be absolutely bananas. This guy is a top tier, trade target for Ben Simmons. I don't know how much the Sixers would have to add to get this guy, but he's a dream. This is a dream, just like another player that we'll get to very soon.
I think Marky215 right here says it well in saying Beal would need a good point guard with him. I think that's true. I think Beal needs a point guard next to him who's going to be a good facilitator, and I think that's why for a while everyone was talking about wanting to trade Tobias Harris for Bradley Beal, because I think if Bradley Beal was on a team with Ben Simmons, it would be very, very nice. But I do think if you're trading Ben Simmons for Bradley Beal, I think Tyrese Maxey next to Bradley Beal works pretty well in itself, being how much of a driver and kicker Tyrese Maxey is. I think Bradley Beal I think a Bradley Beal Tyrese Maxey backcourt would look really good with Joel Embiid.
Yeah, so how much do you guys think it takes to get Bradley Beal?
I mean, this is in the territory. This was my number two, same as my number one. This is in that territory where I don't give a fuck. Like, just like if this is even on the table compared to some of these other deals, I would 100% rather just throw, not the farm, but at least throw in a good bit amount just to get it done, because that pick and roll between Embiid and Beal would be unstoppable. Unstoppable.
For me, it's not even the pick and roll, it's the dribble handoff.
So for you guys both prefer Beal to Levine?
No. I prefer Levine. I prefer the Levine to Beal just purely based on ISO. ISO buckets, Levine can give you a lot more there. And also, like, from catch and shoot, I'm pretty sure Levine is a better too as well.
I don't know, man. I think Bradley Beal probably fits Embiid's window a little bit more than Levine, even though I love Levine. I think there's a little bit more gravity with Beal than Levine in terms of just offense? That's a really good question.
Really?
I do. I think there's no way a defense could stop. You look at the Sixers offense, they thrived when they slowed down the pace. When the Sixers were at their best was when the pace slowed down, and you look at a Zach LaVine offense, that ball needs to be push, transition buckets, all that kind of stuff. And like we said, these are my top three. We didn't get to my number one yet. We didn't get to my number one yet. Probably already did. You're probably like yelling at me because of it. However, Bradley Beal, gives that kind of gravitas, that weight that defenses need to plan for, well above like a Tobias Harris. So I would give a good amount to get Bradley Beal in a Sixers uniform.
I agree with you in the sense that I think you give a good amount to get him if he's available, but just personally, I think Levine also being that he is that speed guy, being that he is a guy who wants to get out and transition and do that kind of stuff, I think he does. I think he complements Joel Embiid even better because he can do that as well. Because I think he can do both. I think he's a guy that can get out and transition and run with a guy like Tyrese Maxey, but I also think he can sit there in the half court and give you buckets.
We saw it with Russell Westbrook. He thrived in transition this year.
The only thing I'll say about Levine, just defending him in the half court and defending him against the needing to run a ton of transition around him, I don't think he'll need to run more transition than Ben did. So I still think that our transition we would still be running less transition and running more half court. I just think, not to dumb it down too much, I actually just think Zach LaVine's a better player than Bradley Beal. So I would prefer Zach LaVine. He's probably my pie in the sky option because I don't think we'd have to give up Maxey, Matisse, a bunch of firsts. We'll get to obviously everyone's hopes and dreams on who they're pinned to, wearing 0 with the Portland Trailblazers. But the next team is the Memphis Grizzlies. And this is another Brian Michael Jacobs trade. I didn't have this one initially, but he had Dylan Brooks, DeAnthony Melton, Grayson Allen, and the 17th pick for Ben Simmons. I'm out. Yeah. And I like Dylan Brooks. And I'm out.
I'm out too, definitely, because I just think you're getting a bit of a better Shake Milton and DeAnthony Melton. I think you're getting a better Furkan Korkmaz and Grayson Allen. And I think you're getting a Dylan Brooks, who you don't really have on this team right now, but I don't think first of all, I think Dylan Brooks I think they'd be crazy to take Dylan Brooks off that Memphis team. He is one of
need him.
He is the heart of that team next to Ja Morant. So I don't know.
I don't even think Ben makes much sense there, honestly.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Defensively, it makes sense. If you're just looking for defense, yes. And I think Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5, I think that makes a lot of sense there. Jonas Valanciunas is even good. He can stretch the floor as well at times, but I don't think that is their move right now. I think they rather grow. Their offense with Ja Morant on ball and not have to worry about that having Ben need the ball in his hands kind of thing.
Also, before we get to the next pick, it would be nice to have Zach LaVine because he's the greatest dunker ever. Just a fun little thing. So many fun dunks. Oh my God. I love Zach LaVine. So let's get to New York. This is a trade I hate because I hate the main player. One of my least favorite draft prospects of all time relative to where they were drafted. And he's been better than I expected. But the New York Knicks, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and Mitchell Robinson for Ben Simmons. I hate RJ Barrett. I think he's a bum. He really impressed me this year.
But I think this is a bad trade.
I think I had him outside the top 10 in his draft class. I just did not get the RJ Barrett thing. I couldn't stand him as a prospect. But what's up, Tops?
Quick nod to Emmanuel Quickley. That's Austin's boy. That was the guy that Austin was super high on coming into last year's draft, and he was great this year.
Let me just say this about Austin Krell. If he thinks he's going to claim Emmanuel Quickley as his guy over me, at the painted lines, we're going to have a fight about it because Emmanuel Quickley is my guy. Matt McGinty can tell you. And when he came on my podcast last year, I was like, we need a Kentucky guard. If we don't get Maxey or Quickley, I'm going to cry. Like those are my two guys in the draft last year. I love Quickley, so that's why I included him here. Then Mitchell Robinson, I thought was just an interesting thing. Someone for like $2 million, and he would be just like an amazing backup for Ben Simmons or amazing backup for Joel Embiid if you get rid of Ben Simmons. Mitchell Robinson per minute is unbelievable. I also really hate RJ Barrett's game. I cannot stand RJ Barrett's game. I can't stand RJ Barrett. But then this is another funny one. We're going to run through this one really quick. Atlanta, Bogdanovich for Ben Simmons. Let's say they get swept or something. They could be up right now. By the way, I think I'd do it, but I don't think Atlanta would do it either anyway, so I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. That's just
we don't talk about the Hawks on this podcast. Yeah,
too soon.
Yeah, too soon.
So next trade.
This trade sucks. Dennis Schroeder, KCP, Kyle Kuzma for Ben Simmons. I've seen this thrown out elsewhere, and everyone who throws it out should be arrested. I should be arrested.
No, because I want this explained to me from you two, because I've gotten this comment thrown at me the last 48 hours. What the hell? No. What are we missing here?
I will say, I do think Dennis Schroeder's a little bit underrated. I think he obviously didn't play that well in the playoffs this year. I will say he also just came off COVID. And
you muted yourself, I think.
Yeah, no, but I think he got thrown into the NBA playoffs and got obviously didn't play well. But I think Dennis Schroeder's better than people give him credit for. KCP obviously has played really well over the past 2 years shooting the basketball. You don't need that's not what you need for a guy like Ben Simmons right now. And Kyle Kuzma, fuck that guy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so out on Kyle Kuzma.
Who in their right mind? LeBron James doesn't even want him on his team. Why the hell would I want him on my team?
Someone said that trade sucks. I know. I said it I said I should be put in jail for even suggesting it, but I only suggested it because I've seen it so many times. It's so stupid.
People comment on this YouTube channel saying you're dumb. Get Schroeder and Kuzma for Ben right now. I'm what? What are we doing?
Okay, once again, I will say Schroeder is, in my opinion, is a good player. I think he is a good player. But I think that you are fucking insane if you think that is the best trade you can get for Ben Simmons. And if that is the best thing you can get for Ben Simmons, don't trade Ben Simmons. I'm sorry.
I agree.
I've been saying all you can get for him, don't do it.
I've been saying we're going to trade Ben Simmons. You can't keep Ben Simmons. But yeah, if that's the case, then you keep Ben Simmons. But this won't be the best trade.
I would rather trade for Andrew Wiggins than do that trade, which says a lot.
Yeah, it does. So then this next one is a weird situation for so many points. Before we get to the famous Portland offers, Jamal Murray for Ben Simmons. Jamal Murray coming off an ACL injury. Ben Simmons doesn't really make a lot of sense with Nikola Jokic. I guess Jokic can shoot enough, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. You want Jokic with the ball in your you want Jokic with the ball in your hands a ton. The only thing that I could see it making a little sense is I don't think Denver's defense is ever going to be good enough with Jamal and Jokic to win a title. So I could see them being I guess Simmons and Jokic is an outside the box way to try to fix Jokic's defensive problems, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense. And also, if you're looking at the Sixers terms, I don't think Jamal Murray will be ready for the start of next year. So you're probably taking a guy who won't be ready until who knows when, maybe the All-Star break. That's also, I'm not a doctor. I'm not checking up on Jamal Murray's injury every day, but it feels like that happened pretty late in the season for him to be coming back early.
I also don't think that Denver does this trade. I would do this trade. I don't think Denver does this trade because Jamal Murray, yes, defensively, the Nuggets are going to struggle, but I think the Nuggets would have gotten a lot further in the playoffs this year if they had Jamal. Personally, sure. Denver beats you with offense. They play decent team defense and they beat you with offense, and Jamal Murray is a big reason why they can do that. Jamal Murray has gone back and forth with a guy like Damian Lillard on multiple occasions, and he is, and Donovan Mitchell, and he is very good. I personally believe that, and he is also extremely young. So I like Jamal Murray a lot personally, and I think he is going to get better and better. But hopefully the injury doesn't affect him too much. But I have no thought in my mind that Denver does that trade.
Yeah, I have a sickness for Kentucky guards, so I love Jamal in his draft.
I can't speak to Denver, obviously, but I would do this trade, no question. For me, Jamal Murray, one of the best transition players there is out there, one of the best shooters there is out there. I don't know what his injury status is, but if there's like a list of trades, like a handful list of trades, and this is the best one, bite the bullet. I'm in.
Yeah. So let's finally do it. Let's break the glass in case of emergency. Let's talk about the Portland Trailblazers. I put them last for a reason. And let's get the big one out of the way first. And the way that I formed this is the Houston Rockets alleged package that was asked for James Harden. Dame Lillard for Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, and 3 unprotected first-round picks. Do you do that for Dame Lillard?
I will do Ben Simmons, Maxey, Shake Milton, and maybe and two firsts, because I personally believe that you're not getting, no matter what, even if you're getting Dame, I don't think Morey gives up Matisse, and I think you're already giving up 2 first-round picks in Ben and Maxey, plus 2 first-round picks as well for him. And he's also, mind you, it's Damian Lillard. He's a beast, but you're giving up 4 first-round picks basically if you're giving up Ben, Maxey, Shake, and two firsts, plus you're getting an older player. So that's my thought.
Yeah, this is where we're like teetering.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the best duo potentially in the NBA, Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid. You're talking about now you have firepower, legit firepower to bring pretty much anybody you want outside of the NBA to the Sixers. Like, this would be the most recruiting team, just like we saw with LeBron and Anthony Davis. Just like, who wants to come win a championship right now? Let's go. Damian Lillard thrives in every single category, checks off every single box that you want fitting next to Joel Embiid. Pick and roll, isolation, clutch, takes the ball out of Joel Embiid's hands, gives him a break in the half-court set. Like, there's so much to love about Damian Lillard. I'm not going to harp on that any further. But what I do love about this is that the fact that, it would make, the Sixers like pretty much the center of the Eastern Conference, and it would just truly bring like PJ Tucker. Then we got guys like coming to the Sixers just to win a championship, unlike we've seen before. Yes, Justin.
Is Ben Butler right here saying, is he saying that?
Joel. He's talking about Joel, I think.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what?
And Max nailed this too, because 100%, like, there is a chance, but like, we don't know. We don't know that he wants to leave Portland, although they have failed every step of the way.
Let me tell you that Damian Lillard has been a guy since he was in high school that has been a loyal player. Like, he went to play for the college team that he played for. I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me for some reason right now. I knew it yesterday, and I cannot remember it right now. Where did he play at college? Someone look that up.
Weber State.
Weber State was the first college to offer him a scholarship, and he stuck true to his word and said, "You know what? No, I'm going to go there and I'm going to win. I'm going to win for you guys." Has done the same thing with Portland, saying he is a guy who wants to do it for the team that picked him, wants to do it for the team that believed in him. He has been that guy since he's been in the NBA. He's consistently talked about his great relationship with CJ McCollum. He talked about his great relationship with the organization, the city. He's comfortable where he's at. He's talked about he likes his coach. He likes his role in the offense. He likes where he's living. He likes how low key it is. Personally, this is the first year where I've thought there is a possibility that he would want to leave, because Terry Stotts is gone. They've talked about trading CJ McCollum, his best friend on the team. He has tried for a long time to get this team to win, and this has been the first year that they've brought defense onto this team and they still weren't able to get it done. Now, mind you, they obviously had injury concerns. It's during COVID. It's been a hard year for that team. But I still have some doubts. Like, unless he is just done because he's like, okay, Terry Stotts is gone. Obviously, this isn't working. I'm out. But I just don't see Dame doing that personally.
All right, so two things here, just to get off my chest before I forget. I'm so conflicted on this. Like, I am about as conflicted as you could possibly be on this Dame for everything, for this specific thing. If Portland says, Dame's not demanding his way out, but we're looking into trading him, and the only way we're doing it is for those three players, Ben, Maxi Matisse, and 3 first-round picks, the Harden package. But I don't want to hear anyone say, oh, you could have had Harden. Oh, and the thing that's annoying me the most, people are being like, how can you trade Ben for CJ McCollum when you almost traded him for James Harden 3 months ago? Houston was asking for Ben Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, and 3 first-round picks. So
when James Harden was a disgruntled star out.
And he looked fat in his warm-ups. But there was all these problems with James Harden, and they were asking for the entire farm. Damian Lillard has no character concerns. Damian Lillard, you know what you're buying. You know exactly what you're getting.
Leader in the NBA, in my
opinion.
Agreed.
Agreed. Maybe whatever. He's a leader. He's a leader.
Top three leader in the NBA. Top 3 teammate in the NBA. He is the best, most clutch scorer in the NBA, in my opinion. He gets the ball anywhere it needs to go on the court, can drive to the rim, kick out, can makes the right play every single time, knows how to get his teammates going, knows how to get himself going, is one of the hardest workers you'll ever see. Damian Lillard has been my favorite point guard in the NBA for the past 3 years in basketball. And that's while Steph Curry was doing everything he's been doing.
Look at the last few games from the Sixers, the second halves, the fourth quarters, every single Sixers fan out there should be begging and pleading for Damian Lillard on the Philadelphia 76ers. This, like you said, Justin, this is one of the most clutch players probably in NBA history with all the bangers he has in his career. Look at the fourth quarter struggles for Joel Embiid, turnovers, Ben Simmons, Tobias. Put the ball in Dame's hands and let Joel cook the other 3 quarters. It's a no-brainer.
Now, I will say I still don't I really don't think Dame's going to be available. I think Portland is going to do every single thing they can do to keep him there. He is going to basically pick the coach, I would assume, and he's going to pick what players are going to be around him. But I think Portland is going to say, listen, dude, you are a juggernaut offensively, and I understand CJ's your boy, but if you want to get this team to the highest potential, we need to bring in a defensive monster next to you, and that is Ben Simmons, and that is why I think that it is a good possibility that CJ McCollum could be traded to the Philly for Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to –
hold on, I want to say something.
There's not a single tweet in Philly sports right now by Adrian Wojnarowski where we wake up in the morning and the tweet is – disgruntled star, Damian Lillard wants out of Portland. His trade targets teams list include the Sixers, the blah, blah, blah. That would be the greatest tweet in Philly sports in 2021, hands down.
I don't know, when he said James Harden, I was pretty damn excited. I'm not gonna lie.
I think this is what I was trying to get to earlier. If you were one of the people that think we missed out on James Harden, then you should be screaming from every rooftop you can find at Daryl Morey to trade for Damian Lillard, because I think this is an even better matchup with Joel Embiid. I think this is an even better pair.
It's not even about the matchup with Joel Embiid. It's it's like James Harden. Okay, how do I explain this? Damian Lillard is the man himself. Damian Lillard, it's not even about the matchup at that point. It's about the player. That's like getting a Kevin Durant. It doesn't matter who else is on your team, and if he fits with the rest of the team, that is your team. That is your guy. Joel Embiid is our guy right now. If you have Damian Lillard on this team, I promise you Damian Lillard is taking shots at the end of games. There's no way in hell.
I was just saying comparatively to Harden. In terms of the fit, comparing it. But yeah, he would have been at Delilah's every night. Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to think. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to not name the other gentlemen's clubs of Philadelphia. They don't sponsor this podcast, I don't think. But the thing that worries me here, and why this isn't my number one trade, I'm just scared of the fact that we're already punting on Ben, who we all are admitting I think has excellent upside down the line. So we're punting on Ben. We're punting on Matisse Thybulle, who I've said if Matisse Thybulle can shoot 38% on like legitimate attempts from three, that guy's going to be a top 50 player in the world. And then you look at Tyrese Maxey, who I've ad nauseum talked about how high I am on him. You just look at his per 36 numbers and you can get the idea of what kind of starter he could be right away. So those guys are just that's so much value to give up on top of 3 first-round picks. So if that's the trade, like if they're saying we're standing pat, we want the Houston package, and they have that blueprint. It kind of sucks that everyone knows that that's what the Rockets' offer was. Portland has that blueprint to say, we know you considered doing this for Harden last year, and we know you might regret not doing it. So how about do the same thing for Lillard? So I could 100% see them holding us over a barrel and saying that. That's why I think the most likely trade on the board and my personal pick for what I think I would do is not Zach LaVine. It is CJ McCollum and Robert Covington for Ben Simmons and George Hill. I think that this is the trade that's going to happen. Maybe not I probably would prefer LaVine. Like if we're saying like what notification gets me more excited, CJ McCollum and Covington for Ben and Hill, or just Zach LaVine for Ben Simmons, it's probably Zach LaVine for Ben Simmons. But if we're saying like you guys seem to think that we would have to attach a lot to Ben Simmons to get to Zach LaVine, I would probably just rather take CJ McCollum and Robert Covington. And the reason I think it's so likely is because CJ McCollum for Ben just makes so much sense. I had CJ for Ben initially, but I actually think that we might have a little bit of the leverage there. Like I think that, and maybe that's what the report was today, that Portland wouldn't trade McCollum. If anything, I think Portland would have to attach a little bit to get to Ben Simmons' value. And I think that CJ McCollum and Robert Covington for Ben Simmons and George Hill makes so much sense for both teams. And I think Robert Covington replaces that perimeter defense that you're leaving with Ben, and CJ McCollum gives you that number one scorer in the fourth quarter, in my opinion, that we can have. I think CJ McCollum has the absolute ability to take a leap when he's on his own team as the main guard on a team. Someone said CJ's another question mark like Tobias. CJ with Lillard went to the Western Conference Finals, making just as many clutch shots as Lillard was making. Yeah, I think McCollum's awesome.
Yeah, I personally love CJ McCollum. I've loved him for the past 3 years. I think for the past 3 years, I've been like he would fit perfectly on this team. I will say also to people who a big question I've seen from him about him is how does he play when he's not playing with another high gravity scorer like Damian Lillard? And we've seen at points where Dame is injured, I can't remember when it was exactly. I feel like it might have been the bubble, or was it this year?
I think it was this year.
We've seen at times when Dame has not been able to play that CJ is more than capable of stepping up as the primary ball handler and also the primary scorer of this team. He is a guy that he's another guy. I said something about Lonnie Walker earlier. Go watch CJ McCollum's highlight reels. Go watch. He's a guy who his highlights aren't flashy per se, but he is very, very efficient and he can make shots at every level. He can hit his deep threes. He can hit basically anywhere from the mid range. He has a floater on both hands. He can score around the rim, can make shots with contact, can hit shots in people's faces, hits step backs, hits fadeaways, hits sidestep threes. He's just a guy who's a bucket getter. He is a straight bucket getter. Now, the one thing I think you could say is I don't know about his playmaking as much. I don't know how great of a playmaker he is. I haven't watched that part of his game very closely. But I'm sure he is a capable playmaker. Being that at times he is on ball when Dame is on the floor as well with him. I think he's another guy that if you trade away Ben and you end up having a lineup of Maxey and CJ, I think that could be really, really interesting, especially if you have a Maxey, CJ, and Danny Green lineup alongside if you were able actually, let me think about this. If you did this trade, if it was a CJ and Covington for Ben and Hill trade, does Covington come off the bench on this roster? Because I personally think he does.
It doesn't. I don't. Who knows? Him or Danny? probably do. But
I think Danny's just a guy you keep in the starting lineup for like just because he's Danny Green.
Cubs a far better player than Danny Green. But I think
you're muted, Dibs. Oh, never mind. We just couldn't hear you for a second. Go ahead.
Probably Danny Green.
Like, because I think if you in the bench lineup, then you probably at this point you probably have Shake run the 2 if you're not signing for a comeback. You'd have Cove at the 3 or the 4. I don't know what do you? I don't. That may be too much speculation.
Yeah, that's part of his appeal. When you're losing Ben Simmons, you're losing a guy that can cover 3s and 4s if we need to. So Robert Covington, while we have Matisse, and then also Tobias would be our 3 candidates to cover those types of players.
And to be fair, Trey Murphy is going to be doing that next year for the
CJ. Jarvis. CJ is 28 right now, turning 29. And also,
and then also, I just wanted to say this: CJ has a lot of questionable playoff games. He averages 21 in his career in the playoffs on like 45-40 shooting. Like he also averaged like really good numbers this year in the playoffs. So like
I think that's also playing alongside Damian Lillard that like he's getting most of the shots. But I can promise CJ is clutch. Like CJ is a clutch player. He gets buckets and he gets them efficiently. Portland is a team that I do watch a good amount because I love watching Damian Lillard play. And I can tell you what, CJ is a lot of fun to watch as well. And I think it's crazy that you're saying CJ does not move the needle. I think CJ does move the needle on this team, especially next to a guard like Tyrese Maxey.
And also, CJ McCollum is not injury prone. He missed time this year. The 6 years before this year, he played pretty much full seasons. He's not injury prone.
You know what the entire take of this whole podcast is? Is there not a more important player right now than Tyrese Maxey developing into his second year? Like we're all like banking on it. We are banking.
If you were trading Ben Simmons, you have to bank on that. But I do think Tyrese Maxey, just the way he's built, like genuinely, just like, and I know this might sound a little bit like cliche, but he is one of the hardest. Like, there is a very good reason why every player on that Sixers roster comes out and says he is probably the hardest worker on this team. Like that doesn't come lightly. Like he literally, like, and I understand like Jimmy Butler, hardest worker, da 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 da. Like I get it. Like I get like it's very cliche and it's very like a lot. Everyone's a hard worker in the NBA. Most people that are good in the NBA, but like to have a rookie that's that hard of a worker and that's that into the game and somebody who has the potential that he does in the pick and roll, like what's his because Dibs, I know a lot of times you have this information off the top of your head. Wasn't Tyrese Maxey had one of the most like promising numbers when it comes to like getting to the rim, like drives to the rim?
Oh my God, his drives to the basket numbers, finishing through contact numbers were out like literally top elite numbers.
Yeah. And those kinds of players tend to be some of the best scorers and best guys in the league as their careers go on. Like look at James Harden. When he was in, and mind you, I'm not comparing Tyrese Maxey to James Harden and what he is now, but look at James Harden when he was with OKC in the beginning of his career with how good he was getting to the rim and like in that sense, like to me, I feel like Tyrese Maxey is going to be a good player in the NBA. I really do.
Sorry.
You're good.
CJ did not fold in the Denver series. He averaged 22 on efficient shooting. Like he didn't score less than 18 in a game in the series. He scored between 18 and 22 in every game. Like he did not fold. He was not the reason they lost the series. Portland's
and you also have to remember that he is not the focal point of that offense.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna wrap this up soon, but that is my trade. Like CJ McCollum, Robert Covington for Ben, George Hill. That is where I'm stamping that's where it is. And this is the roster. This is how it would look with that trade. And I had Covington in the starting lineup because I think Covington is a light years better player than Danny Green. But I have Tyrese Maxey, CJ McCollum, Robert Covington, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. And then off the bench, you have Seth Curry, Shake Milton, Matisse Thybulle, Danny Green, Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed, and then whatever you want to keep Dwight. You want to bring in a different backup big for the mid-level and minimum. And by the way, this might literally knock you off your chair. Considering I'm saying let's do this trade. CJ and Cove, Ben and Hill. Bring back Dwight. How about that?
You love Dwight.
For anyone who is
my
not
only
aware,
problem was
Mark,
Ben. My only problem with Dwight was
in the comments right now who's not aware. Mark has been a complete and utter hater of Dwight Howard this whole season.
I was right, by the way. I mean, he was like a -15 in 3 different games in that Atlanta series, but whatever, whatever.
I'm not gonna lie. Like the more I think about this, the more I'm hype about Tyrese Maxey next year.
Absolutely.
The more I want to do Dame. I just feel like.
Well, I think he would have to go though.
Oh yeah, you think so?
Tyrese? For sure. If you trade for Damian Lillard. Especially because once again, I don't think that they trade Matisse Thybulle in that. You're already giving up the second best defender according to national media in the NBA for Damian Lillard. I don't think you have to give up Matisse Thybulle. I really don't. Like if you're not getting Robert Covington in that trade, and they're going to have Robert Covington and Ben Simmons on that team, I don't think they're sitting there saying, "Hey, we need Matisse Thybulle in this trade." I really don't.
So there's been some of these trades where I'm like, yeah, I'm into it. But at the end of the day, like, I want the better piece. At the end of the day, like, this is the NBA. There's only 5 players on a court at one time. It's not the NFL. It's not hockey. It's not baseball where that works. You can get prospects coming in and do all that kind of stuff. In the NBA, with Joel Embiid and the current championship window with Daryl Morey, I want to make that move where, that Damian Lillard pick and roll with Joel Embiid, that is the prize. And I know it's like 0% chance of happening, but that is my what is it called? White whale? Like that. That is the dream.
So I'm just going to frame this to you guys. I kind of kept a little track of the ones that you guys were noticeably liking throughout the pod. Given all the trades that I sent, like, they're asking that much for Lillard. We said Bradley Beal is, Simmons, maybe Maxey or Matisse, one of them, and then a pick or two. What is out of everything that I presented, what's your trade that you're doing if you're Daryl Morey? For me, I said it's CJ and Covington for Ben and Hill. Do you give up the farm for Lillard? Do you give up a little less of the farm for Levine or Beal? Do you give up a thing for that, like a CJ trade, maybe a Brogdon trade, maybe a Halliburton trade even? What would be your, you get the notification that Ben Simmons was traded. Out of everything that I gave, what would be your most excited one?
So I think for me, for most excited, I think Halliburton and like that, and like Brogdon's off the table. Just because I think if you're like best case scenario, personally, is the 1-for-1 type of trade, and I think that's Zach LaVine personally, just because I think you get a lot of upside on top of not having to give up a lot, but like a lot of other stuff. There's more room for error with that, I think, being that you still have a lot of young guys who you have faith in. But I think like ultimate big prize, if you're trying to like go all in, you don't give a flying F about the future of this team. You want to like win as many championships as you can in the next few years. Dame. I just don't think it's likely, but I think that's probably like the biggest one. Like if that comes up on my phone, I am literally gonna fall over. Like I might have a heart attack. Like if it comes up on my phone that the 76ers have traded for Damian Lillard and Matisse Thybulle is not in the trade, I am going to fall over, and like I would be so happy.
There is no future. Like, you guys got to think about this. In the way this is the way I think about it, is like I went through this entire process and I was on board with the entire process. Right now, Joel Embiid is at his peak career. Right now, the next 3, 4, 5 years. Right now. And if that requires Matisse Thybulle or Tyrese Maxey, the positive is we have Daryl Morey, who fucking kicks ass in finding guys in the second round, finding guys in the G League like Paul Reed, finding these guys that will be able to mesh with the current roster. So as much as I would hate to let Tyrese Maxey go, Matisse Thybulle go. You guys know how much I love those guys to death. At the end of the day, stars win championships, and that is a no-brainer. And I'm in that same tier with it's like I said in my video, it's Dame, as unrealistic as it is, and it's super unrealistic. We're banking on a miracle, but it's Dame, Beal, and LaVine. And if we get any three of those guys, it would be an absolute home run, at least in terms of the shit we went through over these last 6 years.
I will say too, not because Mark, I know you talked to us. CJ is like your top of the top, like CJ and Cove is like your top of the top. I think that is an amazing trade as well. Personally, I think that is your most realistic, like player for player, cap space, like all that. I think that's your most realistic move you can make, where it works for both teams, with your stars basically. But I just think what me and Dibs are saying with what we're talking about is just pound for pound, what could make this team exponentially better. Those guys are the guys above it, I think.
But yeah, I guess I think that the gap between LaVine and Beal and CJ is a lot smaller than I think the general consensus would.
Do you really think that?
Well, I'm not saying CJ is a better player, but I'm saying that
I think the gap is pretty big between.
I don't know if it's
like Zach. To me, like ISO scoring wise, Zach LaVine is like up there, like in my opinion, because purely based on size. For a guy who can get to the rim in like 2 steps based on the explosiveness and can also step back and hit shots really well. Like CJ is just not. He's not the level of like. There's a reason why he wasn't on like one of those insanely good college teams, and it's because physically he's not the physical specimen that a guy like Zach LaVine or Bradley Beal are. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that, but I think what he lacks in that he is. I actually disagree with what people are saying in the playoff thing. I think he's had way more playoff moments than either Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine. I'm just saying when it comes I know. He didn't even. I know you didn't even mention that. I actually think that the plus about him is his familiarity in those situations, and I've seen him be the guy to take the last shot a lot of the times. I know people think Lillard takes every last shot. McCollum has hit some just absolutely huge free throws. So my point is the gap between CJ McCollum and let's say Bradley Beal big enough for the fact that I would rather give up multiple picks and not get anything except for Beal, or would I rather give up nothing except for Ben and take Robert Covington? This is also going to come back to me being probably way higher on Robert Covington than 99% of the planet. But I think Robert Covington is exactly what this team needs from a role player. And I think CJ McCollum would be a perfect second best player and a perfect kind of point guard. I know he's not a point guard like prototypical, but with Joel Embiid and with Seth Curry and with Tyrese Maxey off the bench and with the way that Tobias Harris handles the ball, I think that he is absolutely someone who could fit on this roster. And I think that is the most likely thing that's going to happen. And just another thing, Daryl Morey did trade an absolute ton to get Robert Covington about a year and a half ago. So I think Daryl similarly values Robert Covington to the way that I'm talking about Robert Covington. And it's also on just a hell of a deal still. So that's my favorite deal just because of the bargain that you're getting. But it really is it's always going to depend on how much is Washington asking for with Ben for Beal? How much is Chicago asking for with Ben for LaVine? Is Portland asking for your firstborn child? Like, it is going to be just it's going to factor into that. But assuming that it's a lot for all three of those, I am perfectly happy trading for CJ McCollum and Robert Covington.
I do want to say I also think it's and the reason why I also think it's most likely the Portland like a deal with Portland is just because it's conference wise, like it's probably more likely that you're going to trade away your number 1 overall pick in Ben Simmons to a team in the Western Conference than a team in the Eastern Conference. Like, also you got to think about it that way. Like, teams don't usually trade to rivals or to other teams in their same conference, like Wizards or like the Bulls are in the Eastern Conference. So it is more likely as well that Morey would say, okay, I want to send Ben over to the West so I don't have to play him all year long.
All right. So, I mean, we all gave our opinions on all the trades. You guys can go back and parse through it. We just grinded for over 2 hours. It was a hell of a pod. I think basically what we came away from it is what we probably thought coming into it. We probably should call it the Portland Trailblazers. We should probably get on the phone with the Portland Trailblazers in some capacity. But I think we all want Lillard. We all want Levine. We all want Beal. I want McCollum and Covington combo a little bit more than most. I was actually shocked at how unpopular that trade was on Twitter. But those are the guys we all want. And obviously we talked about some Halliburton things that you wouldn't normally think about. We talked about some even Pascal, Fred VanVleet. We talked about a lot of things outside the box. And I thought that was that's something that Daryl Morey should also look at. But it comes down to the same guys that you're going to expect. And what do we have to give up for Lillard? And that's really the main conversation.
Yep.
All right. That wraps it up, guys. Dives, if you want to close this one out.
All right. Make sure you guys like, subscribe. If you guys love the Sixers, make sure you follow my man up there. The man, he is Mark Henry. Follow him on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. _. He's the host of the Tough Cover podcast. If you want to win some money, who doesn't want to win some freaking money? Right there. There it is.
I think I'll be back tomorrow.
Right. And then you've got the man, the myth, the legend. I can't figure this out ever.
The mirroredness is not fun.
He is Justin. Follow him on Twitter at J_Persichetti. Justin, anything you want to plug, bro?
Just follow me on Twitter. I mean, I'm probably gonna start trying to do some draft stuff with y'all. So
cool.
I mean, definitely go check out the draft stuff for sure. Once the G League starts back up, I'm hoping to still be covering that. So we'll definitely, if you want to hear about Paul Reed and your 76ers, I mean, he's not going to be on the G League probably next year, but if you want to hear about the 76ers and the latest draft picks, definitely come follow me on Twitter if you want to hear about all that. Sixers stuff all summer. Obviously, we're going to be talking about all the moves and the possibilities in the NBA all summer, so follow me on there for that, and just keep checking back on the YouTube channel, man. Turn on post notifications on YouTube. If you want, like, we're going live all the time, man. So go turn on our live notifications. We're live all the time.
It's freaking NBA draft combine week, and my man Tiago and I have been pumping out NBA draft content for the last, I don't know, like 12 weeks. This week we're doing Sunday morning instead of Saturday morning because we got a lot of shit going on, mainly Fast and Furious. You know how it is. So anyway, we're doing 3 prospects on Sunday. That'll put our total to like 25 Sixers draft targets. You don't want to miss that. And we'll be doing that constantly. I think Mark's is joining too eventually as we ramp up and get ready for the NBA draft. And then we'll be doing Olympic basketball content. I'm praying that I get
pumped about that.
I'm hoping I get someone to do like some karate, content with me. That would be really, really fun. Just like react to all that. That'd be a blast. But again, thank you everybody for watching. It's going to be one of the most epic Sixers off seasons of all time. Yes, Justin.
Real quick. I know you're going to tell people to like the video, but guys, subscribe. Only like 20% of the people who watch our videos are subscribed to our videos. I've been checking the statistics and analytics of our stuff on YouTube. 20% of the people who watch our videos are subscribed. Dude, if you watch our videos and you like the content, you consistently come back, subscribe. We are out here. We got you.
All right, so we just did a 2 hour and 15+ minute trade podcast on Ben Simmons. I'm going to go cry up in my bedroom. So I apologize for Justin.